and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, a couple announcements tonight. Grafton Recreation will host their first ever board game night on Saturday, March 15th from 3 to 6 p.m. The fee is $5 per family. Register today at tinyurl.com/Grafton Rec Board Game. Motor vehicle excise tax bills have been issued. This is a friendly reminder that payments are due March 17th. If you have any questions, please contact the Treasurer Collector's Office at 508-839-5335, extension 1340. The Great American Rain Barrel is returning to Grafton. Similar to last year, residents will be able to order rain barrels directly through the company before April 27th and pick them up at the DPW barn located at 64 Old Westboro Road on May 10. Rain barrels are currently available for purchase by residents at the discounted price of $50 using the coupon code GRAF25. That's GRAF25. In order to order your rain barrel, please visit greatamericanrainbarrel.com/community. I am going to add just one more. The Grafton PD posted a little bit earlier that National Grid will be working on Worcester Street near the Mass Pike overpass from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday night, weather permitting, and to please seek alternate routes if possible. Okay, first up, we're going to hear from Justin Stone on the 4th of July parade.
Hello, everyone. So actually I have two parades to talk about. I'm kind of hijacking.
You're only on the agenda for one.
Sorry. The Memorial Day Parade is coming up Monday, May 26th. Still hosted by the American Legion and the VFW. They asked me to come in front of everyone and invite y'all to come out, join us. We'd like to see some of our select board members come out and speak as well. So more planning will be taking place over the next couple of months. You'll see my pretty face again a couple of times during that time. But and I'll send out an official invite, but would love to have y'all out there. So then, actually, the reason why I'm on here, the 4th of July parade is also coming up. We are starting to plan now, and just looking to invite all the board members, once again, have y'all participate. Also looking for volunteers. Would love to have people participate, whether you have a vehicle, you want to walk, hand out candy, anything like that. But love all the town folks to come out and participate in our parade as well. Slowly trying to grow this bigger than all the other towns. Every year we grow a little bit more. Had a great turnout last year. And this year it's going to be on a Friday, which is also going to help us out, I think. So I would love to see y'all out there for that one as well.
Nice. Thanks.
Any questions? All right. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have a public hearing on the docket for tonight.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Alamos.
notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that an application has been made by Helia Group LLC doing business as Post Office Pub, 1 Ray Street, North Grafton, Massachusetts, 01536, for the transfer of the restaurant, all alcohol beverages, for the transfer of the restaurant with all alcohol beverages license held by the Old Post Office Pub, Incorporated, Edward J. Witherell. Premise to be licensed in is located at 1 Ray Street, North Grafton, Massachusetts, 01536. The premises consists of 1 floor, 9,345 square feet across 3 rooms. There are 6 entrances and 6 exits. Upon this application, the Grafton Select Board will hold a public hearing in Conference Room A of the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center at 30 Providence Road, Grafton, Massachusetts, 01519 on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Remote meeting participation is available using the Zoom link posted on the March 4, 2025 Select Board meeting agenda.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to do roll call the opposite way tonight. Ms. Foley?
Foley, aye.
Mr. Offen?
Off and aye.
Ms. Dauphiné?
Dauphiné, aye.
Mr. Alamo?
Alamo, aye.
Jefferson, aye. Okay. Who do we have to speak to this topic?
Good evening, Board. My name is Matthew Porter. I'm the attorney for Helia Group LLC. Along with us on the Zoom hearing as Prusam Kapri, Rakisha Singh, and Sirnivis Vitutha. Mr. Vitutha and Ms. Capri are the two principal owners of Helia Group LLC, which is purchasing the post office pub. Rakisha Singh will be the license manager, meaning she'd be the person responsible for on-site premise in 40 to 50 hours in the restaurant industry. I'm sure a lot more per week. But before the board, this is the transfer of the all alcohol license related to the sale of post office pub. They're also going to be applying for an entertainment license as well as a common vicular license this evening. But fairly straightforward, experienced restaurant group coming in. They own another fine dining establishment with an all alcohol license. So they certainly understand the rules and responsibilities that come along with this. There are no major anticipated changes to the business whatsoever. Obviously, it's been a well-established business in town for many years, and they're not doing anything to try to disrupt that. Certainly they'll go in with their own ideas to try to boost business and bring their own, flavor to it, if you will. But otherwise, no change of hours. The plan is to retain all the staff there. The entertainment license will be for the music, which is, the same that it is here. Same with the common vicular license. In addition to the request for the transfer of license, they are financing the purchase with Rockland Trust. So there is a request before the board just to approve the pledge of license and inventory. But otherwise, their financing has been approved. It's been a very smooth transition with the seller thus far. And if the board, are so to grant this evening, we don't anticipate any problems with ABCC either. So with that, I can certainly answer any questions that the board may have, and our clients can as well.
Thank you. What questions does the board have?
I guess I'll go. I'd like to hear from the owners, if possible. And the attorney mentioned you have experience in the restaurant business. I'm assuming that includes the sale of alcohol. Could you just kind of speak to your restaurant experience and your experience with a liquor license?
Prashant, can you actually elaborate a little bit?
We actually own like Italian restaurant in North Hanover now. We have a full liquor license there, and we also own like two donut shops in Oxbridge and Woodinville. So we do have like a lot of experience on the restaurant business, and then we're really excited to get into the North Grafton. This is really big business here, and we're really excited, and we want to be part of this community and help the communities as we can and move forward with them. So we're really excited to be part of this kind of like a family. It's a small community, and then same thing with the North Hanover. This is also a small town, and then we've been there for like 2 years, so we're doing really good there, and then we're hoping we're going to do the best and bring our best experience for the North Grafton communities.
That's great. Well, I should have started with this, but welcome to Grafton, and I wish you the best of luck there. We do have an Economic Development Commission in town, so I would ask you, recommend that you get engaged with them, and let them know that you're there and participate in some of the events that they may hold. The other thing I'll mention is that with the liquor license, so the town just does periodic sting operations. The police department does. So don't be surprised if if somebody comes in and undercover and performs the sting. They'll do all restaurants and liquor stores from time to time. So I would recommend that you're diligent about carding folks, and make sure that there's no underage sale of liquor, because if there is, then you're going to end up back here, and it's not going to be welcome to Grafton conversation. So we'd love to see you, but not coming back under those circumstances. So
Definitely will take it seriously on that part, because my wife has been in the restaurant business for over 15 years, and then she currently owns the liquor license here in North Hanover, and we never had even a single problem. So hopefully we're going to try to do the same thing we'll do our best. And then I think the servers and all the team we have there is a very good team. So definitely we'll keep an eye, and then we're very serious on that case.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Well, I think the pub has been there for at least 40 years, I think, right?
Yeah,
So
it's-
it's one of the original restaurants when there was probably only 4 or 5 in town, so
Yes.
it's been there
Yeah.
for a long time. So good luck to you.
yeah. Thank you so much. It's
Thank
been
you.
46 years there, I think. Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
that's a long time.
And also, we want to keep in the same manner, actually. We are not changing anything to modern. We want to keep the same look as well as the same feel like how people are coming right now. And thank you.
Excellent. Ms. Foley.
Hi, thank you, and welcome. I'll extend my welcome as well. Just had a question about Sugar Plums and Dance It Up upstairs. Was the plan just status quo for them as well?
Yes.
Yeah, we wanted-
Yes. So, before the board, obviously, this is just for the transfer of the license, but they are purchasing the real estate, and so in doing so, they're taking it over with all the leases currently in place as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Elmo.
Also, welcome to Grafton. Great to have you. If you're at all interested, just kind of jumping on one of Craig's points about being a part of the Economic Development Committee or participating in their activities, if you're at all interested in making a little splash of not necessarily a grand reopening or some sort of under new management kind of an event, just let us know. We like to eat. And we like to drink beer too, and we can make something out of it. People put it on Facebook, get a little PR out of it.
Absolutely.
Sure,
Yeah,
we'll
and
definitely do that.
if
Sorry.
Amber would just pass along contact information, I can certainly get into our client's hand, and we'll make sure we coordinate that.
Will do.
Thank you. Mr. Alvin.
Yeah, I'll, I could also say welcome to Grafton. This is kind of a storied business here that's been around for decades, as you guys know, and I hope you'll be good stewards of that business. Can you guys, any of the applicants, say whether you've had any issues with the Board of Health, any of the other regulatory bodies in North Andover or any of the other towns? Things like issues with the liquor license where you've had to go before the select boards or whatever, or anything like that at all?
No, we don't have even a single issues so far. So touch wood, we hopefully will not have anywhere, wherever we are. So we'll make sure, we'll follow the rules, and then even all our employees follow the rules. And it's very serious not to get by the, like underage. That's very, very important for us and for the community. So we'll make our best on that.
Okay. We'll take you at your word. I really appreciate that. And as you guys probably know, we have an annual process for common victualler and entertainment licenses and alcohol and beverage and whatnot. So we'll expect those requests and applications in on time for next year.
Absolutely.
Well, good stuff. Thanks so much.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions or input from the public? Will we have any hands?
No hands on Zoom.
Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Foley?
Foley, aye.
Mr. Offen?
I'll deny.
Mr. Dauphiné?
Duffin, aye.
Mr. Alamo?
Alamo, aye.
Jefferson, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, can we take a motion to transfer the license now?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, not to interrupt, but just within that motion, if we could also have a motion, because the ABCC is very particular, as I'm sure you may know, we would need to add just the approval of the pledge of license and inventory to that motion as well, please.
We do have that in there. Thank you.
We have two.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve the transfer of the all alcoholic beverages license at 1 Ray Street to Helia Group LLC doing business as Post Office Pub, and sign the licensing authority certification.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mr. Porter, you all right with that one?
That's perfect. Thank you, sir.
Awesome, just checking. Okay, any discussion from the board? Hearing none. Ms. Foley,
Foley, aye.
Mr. Offen,
Often I.
Mr. Dauphiné,
Dauphiné, aye.
Mr. Alamo,
Alamo, I.
Jefferson, I. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and now I believe we have another motion for the vitular and music license.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move the board vote to reissue the common vitular license and indoor music license for the post office pub to Helia Group LLC.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Foley,
Foley, aye.
Mr. Offen,
Often I.
Mr. Dauphiné,
Dauphiné, aye.
Mr. Alamo,
Alamo, I.
Jefferson, I. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Welcome to
Right.
Grafton. Looking forward to hearing back from you and seeing you around the old POP.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks
so
very
much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Thank you, too.
Okay, we have no select board appointments tonight, so we can move right into appointments by the, in particular, fire chief. We don't usually require them to come in for these things. I don't believe anybody's here for them, so, let's just kick out some motions.
All right, let's go. Mr. Chair, I move the board to vote to affirm the appointment of Keith Hamilton and Samantha Hamilton as auxiliary firefighters at Station 3.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Foley,
Foley, aye.
Mr. Alamo.
Alamo,
Sorry,
aye.
screwed it up.
Nicely done.
I went
Tip of the
right
cap.
back into the, sorry.
Keep him on their toes.
I'll do it next time. Mr. Dauphiné,
Dauphiné, aye.
Mr. Offen.
Often I.
Apologies. Jefferson, I. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Alamo.
I move the board vote to affirm the appointment of Richard Casey as full-time dispatcher.
Second.
Motion
Oh.
made.
Hang on. And
Want to do the both of them?
also Kristen Dixon as part-time dispatcher.
Okay.
Are they here?
I don't believe so. Motion made
Second.
and seconded. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Foley,
Foley, aye.
Mr. Offen,
Often I.
Mr. Dauphiné,
Dauphiné, aye.
Mr. Alamo,
Alamo, I.
Jefferson, I. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Welcome aboard to our two new dispatchers. We now have the common vitular hawker peddler license for Taqueria Acapulcos at 135 Westboro Road. If you guys want to just come up and introduce yourself quickly. And
Nobody wants to do it.
we don't bite.
Yeah, this is I speak Spanish. This a little English. This is open a new food truck Taqueria Acapulcos. This is Mexican food. And 135 Westboro Road, North Grafton.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So is it a food truck?
Is that the food truck
Yeah,
that's
it's a-
sitting at Pecorino's?
Correct.
Yes.
Got it.
The address is 135 Westboro Road, North Grafton. This is food truck Taqueria Acapulcos.
Yep.
Mexican food.
We have heard some buzz about it. All good things so far. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are you guys associated at all with the Acapulco restaurant?
Oh, this is food truck.
Right.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
They're not. Okay.
food truck.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, we going.
Can you hang out for 1 second?
It's a good try. So it's a food truck
Yes.
that you're going to operate out of that location, right? And you're going to go out into different locations, right? And run the truck. Is that what you're going to do?
Is it
Okay.
You
Okay.
repeat?
is it just at
It's just
135? It's not moving anywhere else?
No, it only stay there.
Oh, it's going to stay there. Okay.
Yeah, this
Only
parking.
stay over there.
All right. So the kitchen is on the truck?
No, the kitchen. I can.
the-
I can help if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's up there.
The kitchen is in Westboro at a
Yes.
different
Yeah, I see.
location, and then they bring the food in.
Okay.
We're correct.
Yes.
The kitchen's in Westboro.
Uh,
And you pre-prepare
prep,
stuff there, and then you move it to the food truck.
yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Working.
Thank you.
That's how that works.
So it's just a mobile truck that's not going to be very mobile that doesn't cook food.
but you'll stop there and get time.
So do we,
Essentially the
so do we have to make sure that, like, the Westboro Board of Health, I mean, whatever kitchen they're cooking in
No.
Westboro?
It's how the food truck is how they grill over there, cook the food there.
Right, so we've gone down,
Inside.
we've done that process already. So our Board of Health doesn't need to weigh in the same manner that it normally would. The only things that are left to do that we need to make if the board's so inclined to vote this tonight, they need to make it contingent upon getting a inspection by the fire department. 'Cause I don't believe that that's happened yet. So that's your only.
All right, so I'm just gonna go back. So
Sure.
the food that they're gonna be selling in the truck.
Yep,
It's not gonna be cooked in the truck or in Grafton, it's gonna be cooked in Westboro.
correct.
So have we've checked with Westboro to
To
make sure that
they're licensed.
that license and the kitchen's been inspected and all of that. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so that was my question. All right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, 'cause usually food trucks cook the food
Yeah.
and you travel around, so,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. So, if the board is so inclined, I would just make it contingent upon, all applicable inspections being performed. In case there's something else, but
Yeah. Andy, if I can, so it's not in the building.
correct.
So does parking play into it? I'm not trying to,
So they have to.
just trying to understand this because I've never,
So they did have to submit a site plan and follow
Yeah.
the site plan to meet the parking, and it's been around and around through the proper channels, but we do have a site plan on file that shows where that
is it gonna be truck out front?
It is,
It's on the side.
yep, we have it right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the west side,
Pecorino side.
Yeah, Pecorino side.
on the west side of Pecorino.
Yep.
Okay. Any word from the other tenants, like any concerns from the other tenants?
Not through our office, so.
Okay.
Only,
We did receive that.
what's that?
We did receive, there's a message in the packet from the property owner that gives them approval to operate there.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to blow up anybody's spot here, but if they're currently serving food, can that continue pending the fire inspection, or is that something that we need to kind of cease on until said time?
So it needs to be done immediately, right? We shouldn't be serving out of it if it hasn't been inspected by the fire department. I did speak with Tracy, who has been in close communication with Mike Colleen, Captain Colleen, and so they're ready to go and inspect. But in theory, we're not supposed to operate without a common victualer's, you know what I mean, victualer's license. And so there seems to be a slight discrepancy there that we're trying to assist in working through.
I assume so. I just
Yeah.
checking the boxes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So just
Absolutely.
just reiterating that you have to get the fire inspection done as quickly as possible.
Excuse me, folks.
Yep. Hold on one sec, Dan.
Sure.
The chair will recognize you.
So the fire department has to do a safety inspection.
Yes.
You have to
Yes.
get that done as soon as possible.
Yes.
Okay. Hang on one sec. Mr. Finn?
Yes, if you don't mind, thanks. I did speak with Devon, who is our inspector for the Board of Health through the Alliance, and he mentioned last Thursday that he did inspect for, general hygiene, and they were fine. But that, and he didn't follow up with Westboro necessarily, but that there was an issue with the not having the fire department permit yet. But he did check them out.
Thank you. Ms. Foley?
Yeah, thank you. So a couple of things. I mean, one, my understanding is that they have been operating, so do we not want them to cease operation until such time that the fire inspection has been done? And then secondly, my question is, moving forward, will our Board of Health or the Alliance or whoever would be in overseeing this be in contact with the Board of Health at Westboro, you know, on a yearly basis or on an ongoing basis, just to make sure that we feel comfortable with, you know, rules and regulations, et cetera, that are being followed, and who's overseeing that, I guess, globally?
Yeah, I was thinking that. So, Mr. Jefferson, that's
Do you want to bring in Miss Maynard?
yes.
Miss Maynard, you wanna chime in?
Hi, yes, this is Jen Maynard from the Board of Health. Yeah, so as Dan said, we would ask Devon, who does our food inspections, to continue to check the truck for regularly for the hygienic pieces. I think they would also likely be doing a permit through us as well. So we could ask that to be part of the process to check with Westboro that they remain in good standing for their annual permit.
Okay, thank you very much.
And if I might, so would the Westboro Board of Health be doing an annual inspection of the kitchen where the food is being prepared? Maybe that's getting to the crux of my question. And if so, you know, how are we coordinating or collaborating to get that information? So it's not so much I get at the truck, it's on site in Grafton and we'll be checking that, but the actual food prep is what I'm asking more about.
So, if I could jump in, I think that the process is, so they have to apply for a permit to be able to operate the truck in Grafton. And so a part of the Grafton Board of Health's process would be to affirm with the town of Westboro that they have inspected the kitchen and that all permits have been issued. So as a matter of course for getting a permit in Grafton, we would check to see if they have a permit in Westboro.
Okay. And that's, you indicated that that's been done at this point already?
It's my understanding that we have had contact with Westboro, yes, to make sure that they were in compliance.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Andy,
Mr. Alamo?
do we share the tax revenue with Westboro? Or is that whatever tax revenue comes in straight to Grafton?
You mean which?
So any sales
We're the
tax
government,
from the
which
sale
tax?
of the food?
The food
Yep.
would be here. It's point of sale, so we're really getting Westboro on that.
Take it in deep.
Yeah.
We need it.
Mr. Chair, I think you have
I don't know who to go with first here. Miss Foley, I'll start with you.
oh, I think that.
Oh. Well, yeah, I can wait till other people weigh in. I guess I think that, well, go ahead. Given that the permit, you know, the fire inspections haven't been done, and I would just like to see that we have all the documents relative to the Board of Health. But I think that operating without the fire permit is an issue right now.
Yep.
Miss Baynard, did you still want to speak?
Apologies, I just wanted to clarify from staff at the Board of Health. The folks in the room, I believe, live in Westboro, but they're actually, their kitchen is inspected and cooked in Worcester. So we would be confirming with Worcester that they have a kitchen that is in compliance for cooking. And then we would do the, just again, checking the hygienic practices of the truck itself. But again, could double click with the permit process that all of those things are in order on our end, not the fire side.
Yep, I apologize. That's my mistake. I keep saying Westboro, but yes, kitchens in Worcester.
Changes everything.
Yeah. It starts with a W. Just want to put that out.
We'll just leave it there.
Okay, so does the rest of the board have any comment or question?
Just a quick one.
Sure.
How long do we think it will take to get the fire inspection?
I don't have a great answer for you on that. I believe that they're ready to inspect it whenever they.
Tomorrow would be good.
Tomorrow.
Yeah,
would
we
be
should
good.
just do it tomorrow.
Yeah, and I would recommend, you know, as far as being able to operate or not operate, the fire department has much more legal leeway to stop establishment from operating. than the select board does in this case, as far as the speed in which you would do something. So I would let those folks do that aspect if that's what we're thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be simpler for you, but I also think that you know, we can't operate without a fire inspection, right?
Right. And it'd be nice to just do it, you know,
Yes.
as soon as possible for
Yep.
them so they can operate.
So we can make this contingent on the fire department inspection.
Correct.
With the stipulation that there will be no sales until that inspection's happened.
You could, yep, absolutely.
That's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you understand what we were just going through? We're going to grant the license, but it's going to be contingent upon the inspection from the fire department.
Okay.
You cannot sell anymore until you get that fire safety inspection. Again, get in touch with the fire department as quickly as possible. If it's possible for it to happen tomorrow, then you know it happens, and you're free to resume business as quickly as possible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Can you call up there, Evan, just to give them
Fire?
tomorrow? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Give them a call so that they know it's coming.
Live texting it right now.
We're giving the fire department a heads up, so they'll be aware of the issue and hopefully get back to you quickly.
Okay.
So you might want to even just go up there in the morning, you know.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, you'll take a motion?
Please.
I move the board vote to approve a common victual license and a hawker peddler license for Taqueria Acapulco's at 135 Westboro Road, contingent on a fire inspection, with the stipulation that no sales will be done from that food truck until that inspection has been completed.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Foley?
Foley, aye.
Mr. Offen?
Often I.
Mr. Dauphiné?
Dolphin AI?
Mr. Alamo?
Alamo, I.
Jefferson, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we are now on to the VHB scope for stormwater BMP retrofits for 32 Deer Gnome Street and 17 Fairlawn Street.
Yep, so this is design, specification, and bidding assistance from VHB to do the retrofits at both locations you just discussed. The idea is to update both of these systems to reduce the amount of phosphorus going into the water supply.
Does the board have any questions?
Just one. So the estimate for the design work is like 73,000,
Yeah, 78, I think.
78, and then
Total.
their budget for the total work is 710.
10.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, so it is fairly in line. We usually see 10 to 12% for designer services on that. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
we thought it.
All right.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Alamo?
I move the board vote to approve the amendment to the contract with VHB for the stormwater retrofits at 32 Deer Gnome Street and 17 Fairlawn Street and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Foley?
Foley, aye.
Mr. Offen?
Often I.
Mr. Dauphiné?
Dolphin AI?
Mr. Alamo?
Alamo, I.
Jefferson, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and I see Mr. Lapointe in the audience. We have Grafton Rec up next with a road closure request.
Good evening, Select Board. Can you guys hear me okay?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Sorry.
Too good.
I tend to project as a camp person. My voice naturally
I'm turning you
projects. So
down right now.
apologies. So we're just doing our annual request for a road closure between Millbury and Oak Street between 9:45 and 10:15 on Saturday, May 10th for our annual road race. It's the 34th this year. Looking forward to hopefully bring on more racers this year. We're looking to expand our numbers from 250 to 300 this year. So yeah, just happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Mr.
Sorry, I have questions tonight. So when you say between Church and Oak, so so people coming up Oak or Millbury will not be able to enter the common, or is it just between the inside of those intersections?
Yeah, so in between Millbury and Church Streets, that part of the common area will be blocked off because that's
Yeah,
where
alright.
the runners go.
All right, so it's just the roadway around the backside of the common that we're
Correct.
closing. Okay, all right.
Correct.
And that's only from 9:45 to 10:15, correct, for the
Correct.
start?
Yep, just 30
And,
minutes.
and then it gets opened back
Yeah.
up. So it's a pretty
Yep.
narrow window.
Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Alamo?
just curious, Adam, what time does this start?
10 o'clock.
You gonna run it, Mr. Elmo?
What's the record?
Yes, Mr. Broussard.
Awesome.
Well, hobble, really.
Yeah.
Have you seen my gate? It's not good.
Yes.
I have not observed your gait.
It's
believe
not,
it or not.
you know, bad
Surprised
posture.
as you may be.
You know, seen me at the gym. It's not good.
You got a couple months to get ready for it. So
Thanks,
Yeah.
Adam. So you agree to all of that. Good job.
Yeah.
Tip of the cap,
exactly,
sir.
exactly. Yep.
Adam, are we running the same route this year?
Same route. Yep.
Oh, that was brutal last year.
Yeah, I joke that the Oak Street run is the Heartbreak Hill of Grafton, so it's pretty much
It
an
is,
uphill
and
straight
it's,
up.
it's
so.
in like the first 5 feet. You get there, like.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions or feedback from the board? Okay, I think we can take a motion on that.
I'll do that. Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve the road closure request at the Common on Saturday, May 10th, as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Miss Foley?
Foley, aye.
Mr. Offen?
Often I.
Mr. Dauphiné?
Dauphiné, aye.
Mr. Alamo?
Alamo, aye.
Jefferson, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
in
Have a good
tonight.
night.
Thank you.
Okay, kind of our marquee item for the night. Let's get into the rodenticide policy.
This is the marquee item,
Isn't it?
It's
a big deal.
I don't know if it is, but
Yeah, no, that's great.
That's very
Marquee.
flattering, thank you. So
No
my
pressure.
name is Shannon Phelan, and I am a Grafton resident and an environmental consultant. And the reason why I'm here tonight is to request that the select board vote on a policy to restrict certain types of rodenticides on town-owned property. I was just going to share a couple of slides because I know you've had a long agenda tonight, so I won't take up too much time. I did write a letter with some resources and information. It's on, I think it's on page 59 of the packet. Sorry, it dropped me from being in the webinar. So while I'm opening it, I'll just give you a little bit of background. So there's a certain class of rodenticides. They're referred to as SGARs, second generation anticoagulant rodenticides. They're very commonly used. You'll see black bait boxes all around structures, homes and commercial businesses, schools. And the issue is what happens, it's an anticoagulant. So the rodents consume the bait, rats, mice, etc. And then they're poisoned, but because of bioaccumulation, what ends up happening is that predators like raptors, foxes, coyotes, they then consume the rodent and receive a toxic dose. So what ends up happening is that these predators are being killed, and they're the very thing that we're trying to rely on, at least in part, to control rodent populations. This is still not wanting to cooperate with me. Oh, I see the little blue circle, so it is working. It's working on it. So that's the issue. Pets and children are also regularly poisoned by these baits. They continue to be used because they're a popular go-to method with pest control companies. Many Massachusetts towns have already banned these SGARs on municipal properties. There's a list of about 12, Arlington, Belmont, Brookline, Concord, Ipswich, and then more than 50 others are currently in process. Major urban areas, Boston and Lowell, have also just phased out these SGAR baits. And other states are already in the works. California has also banned them. They're persistent in soil. One of them has a half-life of 439 days. So, you know, these are clearly some fairly powerful synthetic pesticides. Okay, here we go, join. And we're also in a unique position here in Grafton because, let me turn the audio off. We are in a unique spot because,
Are you muted? You have to mute, Shannon.
where is that?
Now at the plate,
Scroll to the top, kind of.
first baseman, Mark
Thank you.
Allen.
Oh, turn my volume down?
You have to mute it. There it is.
No?
One more time.
I would do that all day long.
Good? Okay.
What is the movie?
So, we've got Tufts Wildlife Clinic in our backyard, and there are researchers at Tufts right now who are studying this and demonstrating the impacts of these pesticides. So it's kind of a unique thing that we're talking about this, and we have the benefit of their expertise right in our backyard. So can you see this? No? Okay. I'll get there eventually. Thank you for being patient.
Of course. It's marquee item of the night. Let's take
Okay,
time.
now you can see. So I'll fast forward to this. So Boston, when they did their big study of, whether or not to get rid of these pesticides, they had some, very prominent rodentologist scientists come in, and they've published the report. And basically, I'll just read you a quote from that really quick. From the Boston Rodent Action Plan 2024, property owners and renters seem to believe that rat poison bait boxes placed around property and area perimeters will compensate and or substitute for good trash practices. Sound science research, however, has shown this practice, without the elimination of the rat's food sources, to be essentially 100% ineffective. So no amount of bait boxes and poison is going to compensate for the fact that if you have an open food source, such as this dumpster. This was taken on town property today, just as an example of, we can do better with our sanitation and just our human behavior to make a difference. So the solution is what we refer to as non-poison integrated pest management. Our schools already have IPM plans. Those are publicly available. But integrated pest management is something that we could put more into place for all of our town facilities fairly easily. The first principle of that is to exclude rodents. That's why it's at the top of that triangle. So basically you want to exclude rodents from the structures. The second principle is to starve them by removing any and all food sources, open dumpsters, trash compactors, unsecure food. And then after those are taken care of, then you would go to extermination. So there's kind of old school technology and more advanced new technology to do that. So that's what I'm requesting tonight is that the select board approve the draft policy to restrict those types of pesticides on town-owned property. I am very conscious of the fact that human health is a priority. There would be in that policy, in the draft policy that's in your meeting packet, there are exceptions to allow SGAR use for extreme infestations on a short-term basis and as a last line of defense. What we want to avoid is just throwing out these bait boxes as a preventative measure. Even just like driving by the DPW, you can see them, they're all just like along the back of the property. Like, unless there's an actual reason for it, we shouldn't be just putting those out. The other thing that I would request, I don't know if it's something that you can get to tonight, but I would like the select board to consider sponsoring a home rule petition at town meeting this spring. So that would allow Grafton to set its own rules. It doesn't necessarily ban pesticides on private property, but it would allow us to make our own rules separate from the state, because the way that it's set up right now, we can't make any rules for private property that are more strict than the state. That's the way it's set up. So if the town wanted to restrict these pesticides on private property, they would need to ask for a home rule petition. I've already spoken to the Board of Health. Earlier, I guess a month ago I did. They were on board, as was the town administrator. So that was taken care of. I did also speak to the director of ops for the school district as well. And he said he would be in line with following whatever policy that the select board made. Of course, very conscious of costs. I would certainly not expect anyone to, I would never ask to do something that would be orders of magnitude more expensive than what we're already doing. We already have budget line items for multiple departments for pest control contracts. So I wasn't able to I couldn't pull those out of, they're kind of embedded in like other maintenance line items, but and I submitted a public records request to get you a number of how much we currently spend on pest control. I didn't get that back in time for this meeting, but it's on the order of thousands of dollars because each of our public buildings are inspected by a private pest control company. So whether or not you still wanted to keep them on, that's great, but we would just request that they not use these certain types of pesticides. Other options, if you didn't want to use the Escar baits, would be they have vitamin D3 baits. That is still toxic, so we want to kind of discourage the use of poisons. But if you had to do that, you could do that. That doesn't bioaccumulate and doesn't have secondary effects on predators and wildlife. There's also corn gluten meal, which could be used. So the costs for switching to different types of baits are not significantly more. I'm hearing 10 to 20% more, like per little bait block station. So it's not very expensive. And then there are a multitude of other ways, ranging from like super basic installing door sweeps to using dry ice in burrows, electronic and physical traps, and even baits that make the poo glow in the dark so you can see where the rats are coming into the building. Just talking to others, it's not likely that we would need advanced technologies like they have fertility control for rats. They have very high-tech electronic traps and monitoring systems like smart boxes. Those are available and have been successfully used by bigger cities. They have major rat infestations and problems. So being a rural area, I don't think that we would need that. So that's pretty much it. I just want to say thank you. I have heard of many success stories of towns by implementing the non-poison IPM. They've seen a significant reduction in pesticides. They've even cut expenditures as much as 50%, and they've also trained up in-house staff to help make that happen. So I'm happy to be a resource and answer any questions that I can, and thank you again.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, thank you for coming in tonight. That was a detailed but digestible presentation. Mr. Alamo.
Thank you. Yep, thanks for coming in. Don't like these rodents. It's not my favorite topic.
No.
So, but I got through it, which is great. Thank you for bringing all this up, because my first thought was, well, wait a second, I want every tool in the toolbox
Right.
to win this never-ending war.
Right.
But then it occurred to me that some years ago that stuff is not cool because there's cats and there's little puppies and dogs and stuff, and they wander around. So I stopped doing that. I only did it for a short period of time.
Right.
And it totally makes sense to me. So I have a couple questions, and the first is that who would be not for this? Like, what's the downside of this? What's wrong with this argument? What's wrong with this taking this initiative?
Right. So the pest control industry has a very powerful lobbying group. So it's when you have these contracts where they come once a month to refill the bait stations, it's basically a bottomless well of income, because it's not breaking the cycle of reproduction. The rodents are just going to keep coming if you haven't addressed the food source or the entry into a building. It's just never ending. So you've basically got a never ending contract of income.
They can't switch it to something else and still make income?
They could, yeah. So they could switch it to they could switch it to those other baits that I mentioned, the corn gluten meal and the D3. Those do not have impacts on wildlife. They could also just, with changing times, they could just get ahead of it by training up staff to offer more integrated pest management to their clients, which I'm saying we in the wildlife loving community have already seen with some pest control companies are already switching to that because people are asking more and more.
Just one more thing then. You said town property. I've heard this a few times before in different topics. So you just mean like town owned, like the municipal center, the highway department, not town owned property like my property or hers or theirs.
Correct.
Because some people will regard their
the
property as town
Grafton.
property.
Public property owned by the town of Grafton. So schools, DPW, library, municipal center, yeah.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Mr. Jefferson. So I went last weekend up to the Vermont Institute of Natural Sciences, and so someplace that my family and I like to go. It's up in Keechee. If you've never been up there, it's worth the drive. They're a raptor rehabilitation center. They do a lot with songbirds as well. But I was thinking of you, Shannon, because they have a very similar diagram like this as part of their installation there, in trying to bring awareness to this and help save as many raptors as possible from ingesting the poison. So I just found that as a interesting aside. But it does seem to be something that more and more locations around the country are taking an interest in and trying to stop.
Ms. Foley?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to thank Shannon for all the work that she's done on this. And if I guess we can do questions and discussion, but I'd like to propose a motion. Okay, I move that the board approve the rodenticide use policy to restrict SCARs on town-owned property as outlined in tonight's packet.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? The only thing you'd put in the records request, and again, just can be that person. Do we have any idea, roughly?
Really, Andy?
No, really.
I don't.
The financial impact, because the
yeah.
smart traps seem to be the largest expense in the overall list. I mean, and there really wasn't much that jumped out seemingly unreasonable, and it as you mentioned, it seemed like that wouldn't be something that the town would need to pursue, but just.
Yeah, I part of the reason I think that we probably haven't answered the request yet is that the accounting for that is in several different places. So we're putting together what that number is, and I don't know it top of mind to be honest with you. I will say in talking with our staff that we don't have a huge problem or a huge concern with making this transition. So we think that it's well in line with what we've already budgeted as far as, you might need some spot treatment, as Shannon pointed out, with either the well, I'm not going to try to remember what exactly they're called, but, we're just not, we don't have that big of a concern. We are on board and think we can do this within the budget we already have. Maybe I'll add a hawk line to the next thing. We'll just start buying hawks.
Hey,
Everybody gets a hawk.
I'm all for putting the purchases and the perches in the public areas so that they have better access.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Awesome. Okay, that's it for me.
If I might, Andy, I'd raise my hand again, but
Sure.
I would say also additionally in terms of cost, the first line of defense is essentially free. It's just really securing the bins.
Right.
When you drive around and see bins that are open, that's kind of your first line of defense. So even just that would be helpful.
Yeah, there are steps that we can take that don't involve money in this process, as well as the ones that do. Okay, so Ms. Foley, we'll go back to you.
You have a hand up.
Oh, yeah, hand in the public? Okay, yeah, Mr. Elaine, if you want to come up.
Rick Lane, 19 Ferry Street. Why do you guys always look so worried when I come? So I think most of you know that I do a lot of wildlife photography and post a lot of wildlife photography here in Grafton surrounding towns, as well as Lucia does, Hackett does. We have bald eagles nesting here in Grafton. We have that have had young. We have many breeds of hawks, owls, fox. All these animals eat rodents. And the pesticides, again, are the reason why the population of eagles went down is because when they used to use DDT, it makes the eggshell very, very thin and they don't survive. Well, that's what we're getting back to by using these SGAS. So the wildlife here in Grafton, owls, I mean, it's just amazing amounts, and there's better ways to do it. And like the presentation she did at Tufts was amazing, and we just need to inform the public more and more how they can do it differently.
Yeah.
Like I use electronic traps at my house. I get mice, you know, the electronic traps work great. You don't have to touch it. You know, it gives you an alarm, tells you that you have something in the trap, take care of it, and it works great. But the poisons, like I say, just horrible things are happening. Dan Chauvin, a friend of mine who is the animal control officer in Northbridge and Uxbridge, recently got a bald eagle sick in someone's backyard. They don't know the reason why yet. It's very difficult to trace what actually happened, but it did die. He did rescue it. He did send it to testing, and it passed away. Don't know which one it's from. We have bald eagles here, Northbridge, Whitensville, Millbury, Worcester. They're coming more and more. So we want to protect them. I think this is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I'll put in a brief plug too. If you're not following Rick on Facebook, I think you should, because he does some amazing wildlife photography. Your hawks and owls are some of my favorites to view. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Foley.
Foley, aye.
Mr. Offen.
That's an aye.
Mr. Dauphiné.
Dauphiné, aye.
Mr. Alamo.
Alamo, aye.
Jefferson, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much for coming in
you.
tonight, Shannon.
Appreciate it.
For all the work that you've done to assemble this program and get it off the ground.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have a general update from the Board of Health. The Select Board has talked recently about getting back to periodic check-ins with each of our departments, so welcoming the Board of Health here first.
Great. Hi, thanks everyone. This is Jen Maynard from the chair for the Grafton Board of Health. I'm joined here with fellow members Dan Finn, who is our clerk, and Karen Gwastowski-Galvin, who is our vice chair. I don't think our other member is on. So currently, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of who we currently are and what we do. There are 4 members currently on the board. We do have 1 open seat. We meet on Monday, so if there are people listening and they want to join in, not every Monday, but our meeting tends to fall on a Monday once a month. So our team is supported through some of Evan's staff. There's 1 full-time employee and a part-time employee at the municipal center, and they're, in addition to supporting the Board of Health members, they would be fielding any resident calls on complaints, processing those permit applications that we were talking about earlier, things like that. We are part of, for those of you that don't know, a larger group to do some of the more intense sort of surveillance activities we talked about. And that group is called the Central Mass Regional Public Health Alliance. That is Grafton, Shrewsbury, West Boylston, and Worcester. So essentially what happens is we pay in to be part of this coalition and better support the public health and quality of life, hopefully for our residents here in Grafton. And the alliance, as we call them, they really have, their staff takes the lead in doing really all of that. You discussed surveillance of regulation and things like that earlier. So any inspections of food places, Title V inspections, if we receive a complaint about overflowing garbage, unsanitary living conditions, the list could go on. Staff from the Alliance goes out, does the inspection. They do education, with the with the party that is responsible for that location, trying to get resolution. And then they would bring all of that information back to the Board of Health at our monthly meeting. If we need to take any considerations for further action, like fines, for example, they do like tobacco surveillance and things like that for us as well. We would have discussion much like yourselves and consider those things there. Additionally, they also do a primary focus of the Alliance is to really do education and again, research around illness and injury prevention in communities. So we get quite a bit of nursing staff support and epidemiology. So they also come and report communicable diseases in our community and communities surrounding us, any trends that are happening nationally, so that we can also educate the community about how to prevent different types of infections. They would bring to us, in addition to communicable diseases, hot topics of things we talk about, of course, are flu and COVID rates, flea and tick prevention, and Lyme disease, things like that when they are in season. So they bring any reports that they receive, and then of course they do testing and things on well water so that they can get a better understanding of what's happening in our communities and that we can educate on our website, our social media platforms during our meetings so people know how to sort of remain safe in the community. They also do quite a bit of outreach for us in our community. Some things that for a little while were on pause, for example, blood pressure clinics, vaccine clinics, different wellness clinics at the senior housing and senior center. So things like File of Life, so people can make their wishes known if they are injured or experiencing a health emergency. So we get quite a bit of support through the Alliance. In addition to that, the Board of Health team, Dan in particular, for several years has partnered with Tufts and the Municipal Center to offer a free vaccine clinic for pets, mostly cats and dogs. And then the Municipal Center employees would come and allow people to also register their pets annually. And then we have a couple of subcommittees right now that we've started. There is a statewide settlement for the opioid epidemic. Some of the drug industries have been brought forth suit, and there is some settlement monies coming to all cities and towns. We thought it was best to not sort of have that conversation in the vacuum of the Board of Health meeting, but to outreach to other stakeholders in our community that maybe have lived experiences or, have groups that really would benefit from that. So police, fire, the schools. So a few of our members sit on that to get feedback about what are the gaps in our community and how we should utilize those funds. And we've started to sort of talk through with the other communities, again, how we can best leverage those funds so that we're actually investing in the system that we already have and then trying to fill some of the gaps. I'll pause and see, Dan, do you have anything to add on that?
Yes, thanks. Earlier today, I dropped off a couple of sheets of information, which is sort of an overview, and I don't know if they got it into your packet or not, if Amber was able to do that.
Yeah, they did, and they have it in hard copy on.
Oh, that's great. And, I don't want to go through the whole thing. I just wanted to give you folks sort of an idea. Again, an overview of what our charge is and what some of the parameters are set forth by the state and kind of where we are with some of the things. We've been doing it maybe 10 months or so. And again, Dr. Bill Muller and I sort of represent the Board of Health, obviously, but there's a number of other folks listed that have been volunteering their time and coming to meetings, and they're very interested in stemming the crisis, and some have personal issues, but they're all passionate, I think, and that's great. And we have a couple of folks from the general public. So as you probably noticed, we kind of took the liberty of changing the name of our committee from the opioid subcommittee, which was sort of general. It didn't really describe much, to the Grafton Opioid Recovery Community Partnership. And well, I think recovery has a dual meaning, helping people recover from the issues of misuse of substances, but also recovering money from the drug manufacturers and distributors and trying to put it into use in terms of prevention, education. We did have one mini grant that we granted or voted on, and we submitted it to Evan, and that was a $7,500 grant to the police department. Just before Chief Crapo, who was on the committee at that time, he came forward with a proposal and an application to sort of beef up the DARE program, which statistically, according to surveys, has actually been fairly successful. It's been around for a long time, but also to help 2 or 3 of their officers in our police department do a great job following up on folks that have overdosed, and to support that extra effort that they do, that grant was granted. And then currently we're also, we received another proposal. We had a big presentation last month of an outfit called GAP Recovery. Basically, that's 3 people that have been doing this, this type of recovery work, and with feet on the ground, and they have quite a bit of experience. They have references from District Attorney Early's office and a couple other doctors in Worcester. And so we're reviewing that. They're actually reaching out to Shrewsbury and West Boylston as well to see if they can put together a collaborative effort and pool a little bit of the money. It's not going to be a ton, but for an annual basis to support their efforts. And anyway, they're a real deal. And I think they happen to, 2 of them live in Grafton, 1 lives in Shrewsbury, and they happen to operate a recovery home or a clean house in South Grafton with 14 clients, and they've been very successful with that. So that's one additional grant that I think that's going to come to fruition. If they're not able to put Shrewsbury and West Boylston into it, they said they could tailor it to Grafton only, but they're going to try to get everybody in the alliance involved.
Thank you, Dan. So as Dan said, there are beyond opioids, there's a lot of substance misuse things that we think we can help with. Obviously, we want to focus on also education, destigmatization. And I think one thing we've learned from this too, as well as the Alliance, who joins us on all of these types of subcommittees or work groups, whatever we want to call them, is that we also learn more about what's happening already in our community and the other communities that we might be able to leverage for our residents. We did do, the Alliance did help in some of this work as well with some Narcan administration training, and again, ensuring, like first responders at a minimum, making sure that we have appropriate stock of that available in town. And then we will be kicking off another work group again. Sometimes it's better to sort of take a body of work and have a few people focused on it. So we just had a presentation from the ambulance committee, who essentially goes around town and looks at the schools, the municipal center, a variety of places, and looks at what they have for their emergency defibrillators and their first aid kits. And this is not uncommon, I think, in places that are, sort of having to do their own thing or maybe part of a larger group. Everybody sort of has a different baseline of where they are, what they keep in their first aid kit, the status of, expired materials, how often is somebody checking that, emergency defibrillator pads, making sure that they are well stocked and charged and available in case of an emergency. So a few of us will take that offline with the the ambulance committee, the Mass Medical Reserve Corps, we work quite a bit with in Grafton as well, and someone from the Alliance. And I think the fire department is going to join us as well. So again, we sort of have the baseline from the ambulance committee, and then we can come up with some standards across the board to make sure that, you know, wherever our residents are living and playing, if they have an emergency, they have access to those things. And the other thing they brought up was that in our ambulance contracts, you know, we have Massachusetts in the nation has a growing older adult population, and we have a lot of recurrent calls for lift assist when people fall, or you know, maybe they have greater needs in the community, or they're living in the community and they have greater needs than services and supports in place. So how can we support our ambulance providers so that you know, those costs are not going up, but our residents are still getting what they need, and we're connecting people to things that might help them more. So that's next up for us. We'll have more updates at a later date for that. But I don't know if there's any questions or what questions you might have for us.
Great segue. Does anybody on the board have any questions or anything they'd like to discuss?
I don't have any questions. I'll just thank you for all the work that you do. I'm sure, you know, you guys, you cover a lot of territory on that committee. You know, there's a lot of different elements and things that you guys get involved with, from you know, from nursing and from shots to Title V inspections and restaurant inspections, and so there's a wide gamut. So thank you for all the hard work that you do. And I guess one question, the Alliance, that relationship is working out. You comfortable with the team from the Alliance? Because I know there was some years earlier where there was a lot of turnover and there was some contentious times. But if that's working better, then
Yeah.
that makes me happy.
Yeah, we full transparency, they did actually just have some recent turnover of some of their director and deputy director level. That said, they also had quite a few people that remained on. Their chief of the Worcester Public Health Division started coming to our meetings while they onboarded folks that were actually, again, within the division that they moved up into positions. So I think that they are very responsive when we ask them to go out and do things. Several of them attend our meetings even when they run longer and things like that. So I know from my perspective, I've been pleased with them. I think the rest of the board has been satisfied with that, and even with the response with some of their recent turnover.
Good. And just one more question, Karen, how long have you been on the Board of Health?
Oh boy. Let's see.
It's been a long time.
Long time. Let's see. I got my master's in mid 2002, so probably like 2003, maybe.
Wow. That's why
Something
you
like
wanted to
that?
offload that chair.
Oh yeah, Craig and I go way back when it comes to between select board. Well, back then it was Board of Selectmen. You know, and Board of Health long before the Alliance showed up. Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, those are fun times during that transition. Yeah.
It's been a wild ride sometimes.
Actually, if I could add just one more thing, if I could ask you folks for some help on helping us find another an applicant, another member of the board. I think it's on our website and in the Grafton News, but I think we need some networking, and we gotta put a headlock on one of our neighbors or something. Or we all have friends that, you know, want to do some public service, and it is a commitment. But I think if you don't mind checking around to see if there's somebody in your neighborhood or that could help us fill that spot.
You know, there's an ex-firefighter in the room who might be really good at that.
Yeah, he's right. That's right.
We'll give him a nudge.
As long as he doesn't bring any birds in.
Mr. Sack.
We do have 4 applicants that'll be before the board on the 18th.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sorry, Dan, I tried to get you earlier, but
Well, yeah, that's great, and it's always good to have somebody in the on deck circle too. You know.
absolutely.
Ms. Foley, did you still have a comment or question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm struggling with this hand up, hand down thing. I was going to say that it did seem that we did have some applicants, so that's great. And I just wanted to thank the Board of Health for all the work that they do, and I do appreciate the longevity that we've had on that committee with some of its members. So no questions, just wanted to thank them for the work, and then also for coming in and giving us this overview. I think it's great for not just us, but for the public, if they don't tune into some of these meetings, to understand the work that's being done on that board.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Chair, one last thing. I just want to acknowledge that Dr. Muller is here in person. And I know that Jen probably couldn't see that, so I just wanted
No,
to.
we could not. Sorry, Bill. Thank you.
I don't have the longevity that some of the members have.
Just one quickie. So one of the things I love about being on the select board is that we do get to hear about all like current trends on things. So here we're hearing about rodenticides and how important it is to sort of manage the materials that we use and, you know, take care of the wildlife and ecology in our town. You guys do a lot of monitoring and surveillance. Is there anything that you guys want to sort of raise as a trend or something that the town should be more aware of?
I don't think so off the top of my head. I think we, you know, there is certainly it's winter time, so we always want to say to people that the usual suspects of flu, COVID, and pneumonia are there. And, you know, we talk about that at all of our meetings, but for the most part, I don't think we have too many concerns from a public health perspective. Certainly there have been some things raised in town that we always try and keep track of. Not everything is in our purview.
Sure.
But, you know, we always try and keep a close eye on those things so we can be best supportive to all of you, and to Evan's office. Dan or Karen, anything to add to that?
Love it.
No, good.
All right, well then I'll just tag on to the other select board members and thank you guys for all the work that you guys do. I think sometimes it goes unappreciated and people don't, it's not as visible, but it's extremely important, especially in a long-term basis. And it's nice that you do have some continuity of membership there to be able to see those long-term trends and to be able to see the slow changes that happen in the town. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd add on to that, you know, and I also love to see when a regional program is functioning, you know, ideally and how everybody wants it to, you know, the collaboration and pooling resources, what works here, what's, you know, what could we be doing better. I do a couple softball questions if you don't mind. How long have each of you served on the board?
22.
Yep, we know Karen's answer.
Too long.
I'm
Dan?
7.5. I think.
And then Dr. Muller joined, I believe you were 2020. He got slid in during, they wanted the doctor on during COVID. And so I went in, I think at 21 or 22 I've been on since, so I'm on my second term.
Excellent, thank you. And now that we seem to be checking the box for your fifth member, is there anything else that the select board can be doing to better assist you? Anything top of mind that we can be helping you with?
One thing I would say as it relates to the member, we would be happy, we're thrilled to hear, I think that there's four possible applicants. We would be happy to review any applications or meet with anybody and just sort of weigh in. I think, you know, I personally am newer to town, so it's really been very helpful for me, as you said, to onboard, to have, you know, people like Karen and Dan. And we all come from slightly different backgrounds. So I think that's very complimentary to, you know, what we've done, historically as well as now. So we would be helpful. We would be happy to help in that space, I think. And I think we feel pretty well supported. I will say, whenever we've asked Evan to come to meetings to report back to us on things, because we don't necessarily come to all the other committee meetings. And of course, we try and stay well informed as well. But we are well supported by the municipal staff and Evan and the Alliance. But thank you for the offer at this time.
Love to hear it. If there's anything, anything we can do, you know where to find us.
Yeah.
Just one last thing, just a shout out to your staff too. Nancy's been there a long time as well, and she does a fantastic job in that office, and she knows where all the bodies are buried there. And I don't know the other person in the office, but I know Nancy's.
Yeah.
She's endured through a lot there, and we're lucky to have her.
Yeah. The team that I joined, I was at the tail end of COVID, but Dan, Karen, Nancy, and Bill, there was a lot of stuff, even with the Alliance support, I know everybody was doing. So people have done just a great job, and hopefully we can do just some new things that we need to focus on in town to continue to have a healthy space for everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other questions or feedback from the board? All right. Thank you again for coming in tonight. I really hope the public appreciates the extensive work that you do, and thank you for highlighting all of that. You are welcome to stay and hang out. You are under no obligation to, so we will wish you a good night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Look what you did.
Wow.
That's it?
Thank you.
Well, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Can I go too?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you all.
I was wrong. I think the Board of Health was a marquee item.
I
tonight.
think you.
And
Yeah.
rodenticide.
Oh, were there a lot? Okay, great. It was good to see so many people out.
It really is.
Okay, so next up we have our consider a vote on the Cable Advisory Committee charge amendments. Mr. Elmo, do you want to lead this one? Do you want?
Sure. I mean, we've already gone through this a few times and vetted out the details of the charge. Had the Cable Oversight Committee in to discuss. Evan and I went back and to see if we would make any additional changes, which we agreed we'll just leave it the way it is, as it was revised from what it was, and to transition this from Cable Oversight to Cable Advisory Committee with the charge as written.
Okay. Any input from the board?
Just thanks for your work on it, Mark.
Excuse me?
Thanks for your work on it.
Oh, you're welcome.
One question.
Oh, I'm not available for comment.
The charge is great. It looks like it's probably where we should be at this time. But I did have one question. Is bullet point number 3 part of the charge is to receive and evaluate citizens' complaints, concerns, and suggestions concerning cable services. But it doesn't say what they're supposed to do with that. Like, are they gonna, like, they can receive and evaluate complaints and concerns. So what does that really mean? Like, are they gonna be responding to them, or are they just a resource for people to call and like, how do they handle that? Oh.
So in the way I've been looking at that bullet point is that, they're receiving citizens' complaints. Cable costs too much. My road doesn't get certain channels, whatever it is.
Right.
And then they're supposed to meet with the select board from time to time and advise you. And those are the issues that they would bring up that we've heard from a number of residents that.
That's fine. I just didn't know if they were going to act on it, or they were going to, bring the information to Bob, or or whatever. It seemed like it was incomplete.
I read that as being in tandem with bullet point number 4. That's how I broke the charge down in my mind. And if we need to clarify the language a little bit, absolutely. But but bullet point 4 is to meet with the select board from time to time and advise the board on matters concerning service, compliance,
Yeah.
regulatory climate, and matters of other relevance to cable subscribers. So they're really
Right.
supposed to be,
Yep.
you know, collecting that data and then reporting that out to,
Okay,
to you folks.
I'm fine with it the way it is.
Okay.
We've been talking about this a lot. I just needed an
Yeah,
explanation
okay, great.
to what they were supposed to do with that information.
Thank you.
I did have a couple question comments. It's this first bullet at the end where it says franchisee. I thought during the joint discussion that we revised to change that licensee would licensees plural because there are multiple would be a better term there. I don't know if
Okay.
that's a make or break for anybody on the board.
Yep.
Also, what's I think the seventh bullet here. Yeah, the one with the PEG access provider. Hold public hearings to review the performance of PEG access provider. Again, I feel like it was my understanding that the department head manages the PEG programming.
Yep.
So that if they were to do a public hearing, it should be more general service than specific to that.
Okay.
Anybody take issue with either of those things? I think they're just, technical, but if we can button it up. Mr. Toma,
I think the issue they raised was cable providers.
They wanted to say cable provider?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Instead of franchisee? Or
No, instead of PEG access.
Okay. Okay, is everybody okay with those amendments?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Then I vote we don't belabor this anymore and take a motion.
All right, before we do, just a quick comment. There's a couple of people that helped out, and you know who you are, so thank you very much. Because it's a pretty complex issue when you really dig into it. It's not as simple as people think. So thank you very much for your help. And Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to approve and sign the Cable Advisory Committee charge with the two changes that Andy just discussed.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Foley?
Aye. Fully aye.
Bob and I.
Mr. Dauphin?
Dauphin AI.
Mr. Alamo?
Alamo, aye.
Jefferson, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Whew. Okay. We are going to pass over item G, the regulatory and use agreement for the local initiative program at 116 Upton Street tonight. That will be coming back at a future date. It has some further administrative work that needs to be done before it gets to this board, which jumps us down to the letter of support for the Municipal Empowerment Act. I apologize to everybody for not getting this in time to get it in the initial packet, but sent it out to everybody last night. As I noted, it largely pulls from the template that the Mass Municipal Association had provided, but I did add some language to make it a little more Grafton specific. For those of you at home, some of the we'll call them pandemic provisions like Zoom access are set to expire at the end of March. And the Municipal Empowerment Act seeks to continue those and codify them indefinitely. There is one provision in there that makes it mandatory for hybrid meetings, which would eliminate the full remote option. In our letter, we stated that we would not be in favor of that. We are in favor of codifying it as it currently stands, leaving the full remote option to provide flexibility. We have limited conference rooms here, at the municipal center to work with, and I think there's an importance in the flexibility for both residents and the volunteers on the committee that we make it as easy for people to both attend and participate as we possibly can. So I spoke a lot right there. Anybody else have anything that they'd like to add or discuss?
Yep. Mr. Chair?
Mr. Alamo?
I agree. And it's, there's no turning back. We have to have remote capability. It's the current circumstances in the world. It's the way it works in corporate America. You can attend meetings and be just as effective on Zoom. I don't know that I'd want to do it all the time myself, but you have to do it. It has to be a part of it. It's a well-written letter. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for participating. Thanks for bringing it up. We need it. We need to make it happen. Because otherwise, if we don't, not only will it be hard for people to make these meetings, but it'll be hard to attract people to volunteer for these kinds of things, boards and committees.
Well said.
Thank you.
No, I'm good.
All
I'm
right,
good with it.
Mr. Off?
Yeah, just quickly. So I like the letter that you wrote. I would like to include something about so in the Municipal Empowerment Act, there is a provision for additional tax exemptions for seniors. And to me, that's one of the most important things in this bill. It allows for additional tax exemptions as well as the option for towns to do cost of living increases on an annual basis, which I think is important too. So one of the things that we've always struggled with is the limits, the means testing, the asset test, the income and all that. It gets fixed at a certain amount, and then it just goes out of date pretty quickly, and the amounts are pretty low. So just not a lot of people qualify for those abatements, and they're really important. So if it's okay, I agree with what you've said. I just would like to add some language to also emphasize our support of those senior tax exemptions as well.
Great. Is the rest of the board in agreement on that? Is there anything in there that we take issue with, or would you be comfortable with Mr. Offen and I collaborating to add that language and then send the final letter once it's been added? I mean, we can bring it back for another review if that's what we'd like to see. Opening it for discussion.
I don't take issue with the intent and the topic. Is that the same thing? Does that water down or dilute the message that's being sent of we want this, the Empowerment Act? Is that the same thing?
It's all part of it, yeah.
It is.
So it's
Oh,
relating.
then go for it.
The two
Yep.
areas that
Good.
are arguably the most important to Grafton.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
good.
Cool. You want to give us a motion with an amendment on it?
I can do that.
Please.
I move the board vote to send the letter of support for the Municipal Empowerment Act as presented. I'm sorry, not as presented, with the amendment that Mr. Often has suggested. And authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Foley?
Fully aye.
Mr. Offen?
Often aye.
Mr. Dauphiné?
Dauphiné, aye.
Mr. Alamo?
Alamo, aye.
Jefferson, aye. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you all for your help on that. Next up, we have an Ask Me Anything to schedule. I believe March was our 3 months from the last one, so we need 2 volunteers and then to work together on a time and a location.
Want to do it?
Well, let's do it. I haven't done anything with you. I've done something with everybody on this board but you.
I can run, but I can't hide. Is that what
You
you're
can, you
saying?
can, but I'm gonna.
I'm good with that. If the board is, I'll do another
cool.
one. Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go.
that would be fun. Okay, sure.
So maybe I'll get a word in with you. Maybe not. We'll see.
Wait a minute. We didn't talk about that. So it's
You guys schedule it.
yeah. So and we should talk about a venue too.
Yeah, you guys do that as well.
Right.
Thank you. Wait a second. That's not what we're
So
signing
can we?
up for.
So
Through the
what
chair.
are so what are the rules on where we host this?
There are no rules. I would just keep it in Grafton if possible.
Keep it Grafton.
Can't do it in like
I mean,
Key
you know.
West or. So no, I'm just thinking about just putting my EDC hat on for a second, and not that anybody would want to have us, but to have it at a venue where somebody might support a local business might not be the worst idea. I mean, we did it at me and Andy did it at the South Grafton Community House, was great. We have the community barn, which is great. I mean, we could do it at a town building, but where's the value to, like, if we can bring some people to some place that maybe they've never been, or maybe they grab a cheeseburger or whatever. I don't know. I'm just it might be
Post
more
office
difficult
pub.
to schedule.
When they reopen, in the pub.
Could do it in the pub.
Yeah,
I don't care. I'm just thinking.
Let's do it at a
of-
business.
of a
Let's do it at one of
place.
those.
What do you guys think about
Andy,
that?
you're
I
hitching.
mean,
I
You're
don't
hedging.
know. I certainly support the idea. I feel like it just gets it opens a door to the perception of favoritism, or then we really got to be good about spreading it around and giving all of our local
that's fair.
establishments equal opportunity.
Right. Yep. And that's what we're doing with the EDC. So I'll report on that later. But we're going to do our spring event, and we're going to, last year was at the PO Pub. We're going to be doing it somewhere different. We're just going to rotate with people that are willing to host and share, share the event and, in the business to them. So, I'm fine either way. I'm just throwing it out there to try and, give local business some support while we're doing this as well. It's just an idea.
Mr.
Yeah, Miss Foley.
Making sure you saw.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, it's up to you two to come up with a venue and when you want to do it. But I do think that, just being conscious of when I've done it, I've thought about like where we've done it before, trying to spread it around town, right? So it's accessible for people in different parts of town. When Mark and I did it, I reached out to the historical. We did it over at the museum, and it was exactly that, to bring people into that venue and potentially join and so on and so forth. But I think when you look at doing it with businesses, like you said, we'd have to make sure that we spread that around. But it's up to you two at the end of the day. I don't think we have to belabor it maybe tonight.
Okay, we'll figure it out. Thank you.
All right. On to select board reports.
Well,
Ask Me Anything's happening in April.
You mentioned EDC. Once you finish your
Yeah,
call.
so thank you. We've picked a date for our event. It's going to be, I believe it's May 15th. And while we're talking about it, William is going to start kind of being our in-house kind of support staff and help us with EDC correspondence, events, reaching out to businesses. There's a lot of things that committees talked about doing to embrace business, bring them to the table, do some networking, let them know that we're here to support them and help, and if there's anything we can do for them, they can work through the EDC and find out about new businesses coming to town. So the event, again, is going to be May 15th. I think that's a Thursday.
Yep.
And it's going to be at Reunion Tap and Table this time. And we're going to talk at our next meeting, which I think is on the
March 19th.
March 19th, about continuing to plan the event and figure out if we're going to have a speaker or something like that, to join us and then get the word out to businesses. So we're still working on that, and more to come.
Anybody else?
Do you want to cover Tricom?
I mean, you can if you want. You seem like you want me to do it, but actually, I would like to talk about that. So, I think everybody here did participate or came to this room to listen to the school committee meeting earlier last week. A couple days later, both Matt and I went to the Tricom meeting and explored a couple of different options for what we're all facing in the coming months and the new fiscal year. So I participated in that as well. And also, and I don't think we need to get into if you want to get into the detail, we can talk about that, but there's more to be worked out. I'd also say that I did visit with Dr. Cummings yesterday for a while, and that was a great conversation. It was totally collaborative and informative, and it was an absolute exploration into all options, all possibilities, because as much as there is conversation about both sides, all sides, the whole thing, it's one town, one budget. We need to work together and figure this out. And if there's anybody that is watching this meeting, everybody left. I thought they were stick around for a little more, but apparently that's not the marquee. This is not the marquee event. It was the earlier stuff, it was Board of Health. But the people that are sitting at this table, and also Anne Marie Foley, along with Evan, Will, school committee, people on finance committee, absolutely Dr. Cummings. Everybody's trying really hard to figure out the absolute right solution. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect set of circumstances. It isn't easy. It's a lot more complicated than most people would think. And if you know, you know. And if you don't know, you don't know. And if you don't know, you should know that the team of people that are representing you are working very hard to try to come up with the best outcome for the entire town, for everyone. So that was my little week, last week and this week. It's not over yet. There's more to go. But it's getting there. Too much?
No, I'd like to just add just a teeny little bit, because yeah, it's we're in that like all hands on deck mode at this point. Every select board member was at the school committee meeting where they presented their reduction budget and the cuts that they would anticipate under the reduction scenario. I think it was well presented, and there was a high attendance at that meeting, and I really appreciated the information that we got from Dr. Cummings. It was really really helpful to see specifically where he would propose to make cuts and the impacts of those cuts on the school system functioning. So I found that to be very educational and extremely helpful in terms of helping me to understand what we're facing right now in the schools. So that was really good. And just in terms of TRICOM, I did want to just kind of outline sort of the basic options that we discussed, and then I'll just kind of leave it there. I think we'll talk about budget a little bit in a later part of the meeting, but yeah, we're looking at the potential for a 1-year override, which would be just a bridge into next year, with the intention of clearing the way for some additional clarity around some of the ongoing projects that are happening right now that may bring in some additional revenue in the coming years. So that's one approach. Another approach would be a 5-year override, which would be similar to what we've done in the past. And the third option that we've asked for some input from Dr. Cummings and Mr. Broussard is an option of some cuts on the town side and the schools, and some combination of the use of potentially some override and potentially some stabilization monies, to the best of their ability to put together a package for the select board and school committee and finance committee to look at and evaluate. So those are sort of the three basic options that we came out with from the TRICOM meeting, and I thought those are three good viable options for us to evaluate. So I was personally pretty happy with the fact that we've got three different but explorable options. So I'll just leave it at that. That's it.
All right.
Do you hear that?
I do.
Okay, because you're looking at me like I've done. I
was
didn't touch
contemplating messing with you and telling you that nobody else can hear it to see how long I could get away with it.
That would be funny.
The fan in that camera has gone, and we have to get it fixed.
Maybe we could turn the heat up a little bit too, right? Because it's not too hot in here.
4 or 5 times I almost covered the mic to see if you guys are hearing that too.
I missed an opportunity.
Really did.
Gaslight all of them.
All right, let's go over to the TA report.
Okay. So later part of the meeting, we're going to discuss the budget immediately later. So just go right to the next slide. Go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 slides. We are working on override figures, tax impact as requested from the TRICOM. 1-year override, if we were talking about $1.6 million, is about $237 annually. for the average tax bill. Oh, okay. No.
Done with it?
I am now. Go ahead. Okay. 5 years, we're still working on this number, but I did want to just include it. I think I'm going to give you a number of different 5-year options of kind of where we're going to fall, as we are looking at a holistic approach and doing a whole bunch of different things. If you were to enter in, and I said this at the meeting, the TRICOM meeting, $3 million override at 5 years is $444 annually at year 5. And so what that looks like is, just like the last override that you did, you incrementally chipped away at that money, so that $444 addition isn't immediate. Year 1 might be $200, and then year 2 you're at $300, and so on and so forth, right? Up until you get to that maximum amount. The other caveat that I want to mention, and I'm gonna mention this when we're talking to TRICOM and FinCom, is that any override projection that we give you right now is based upon the tax rate that we have currently, because we can't foreshadow what the tax rate's going to be 5 years from now. But it's going to be pretty close. We're going to be within a pretty finite ballpark, say, $20 each direction, let's say, if something were to change drastically with the tax rate. All right, so now we're going to move into a wildly less popular conversation than override. We're going to talk about trash. Everybody's favorite topic. So, we have been working very diligently with the school department, Mary and I, Jay and Kathleen, to talk about the different cuts and everything else that we can potentially make and where revenues might be available. And I think that it would be a huge misservice if we don't talk in deeper context about the trash program. So we've talked about amending the trash program. We talked about it at the original budget presentation. The problem with amending our trash program is that we are at minimum a year away from being able to make any kind of transition, right? We're probably talking about a change in fiscal 27, if that's the way that we wind up going. However, there is a secondary option. Rather than changing the entire program, is to stay within the program we have and change the fee structure. So the intent of pay-as-you-throw is to create a fee for service that is dictated by the amount of waste that you produce. That's the whole underlying cause or practice of pay-as-you-throw. Our current program, we've tried to keep at about a 50% funding ratio, which means that your bag fees cover $600,000 ish, right? One other caveat before I go into this: I've used all round numbers for the ease of having a conversation, and if we continue down this road or this conversation, those numbers become more finite. So we have about a $600,000 nut that is funded through the general fund, which is your tax base. So $600,000 of our capacity goes directly to subsidizing the trash program. However, as you know, the select board has the authority to shift that fee for service model by setting the fee rate for the bags. Buckle up. Okay. So as a study, just hear me out. Hear me out. If you were to increase small bags and large bags to $14 and $20 respectively, you would essentially create a self-sustaining program in which the user fees cover the cost of that service. And there's a number of different reasons you'd want to do that. One is that we would be removing that $600,000 from our current general fund budget, which gives you $600,000 in capacity, which then moves that needle that we're talking about of $1.6 million down to $1 million. The other reason you may want to consider that is that, what are you doing? Can you just leave it there, please?
Sure.
Thank you. So, the other reason you might want to leave it there is that, nope, I had a rhythm.
William, I don't know.
You're not starting over.
No, I go back to the beginning. No.
Yeah.
No, the beginning.
Trash.
Very beginning of the entire meeting.
No. So the other you may want to look at that because you're creating a system in which the amount of waste that you create is the amount of waste that you pay for. The other nice caveat that we have here or carve out is that we already have a senior reduced program within this system that we already have. You can come to the senior center as a senior and get bags at a reduced cost. The reason that I'm bringing this up now is that as we explore all of the different options, a lot of our budgetary conversation will change if this is something that the board is interested in pursuing. And I'm going to go into that starting now, and then we'll back up to bag fees. Next slide, please, Will. Thank you. So as we've gone down this path, like I just said, we went from, if you were to change the fee structure with trash, you go down to about $1 million deficit. We also received really good news from BVT this year in that they actually reduced their budget, our cost of the budget, let me put it that way, which is generally driven by the number of students that we have going from the town of Grafton. So our budget for BVT actually went down by $65,000. We had carried an 8% increase because that's what we thought was going to happen. So that saves us in our budgetary number about $200,000, which would bring our deficit down to $800,000. Yes, sir.
But that could just as easily go up by 100 grand next year, right? So it's all
Sure.
It's all
Yeah, I'm
enrollment.
talking about fiscal 26 only right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Was that reduction because of lower enrollment or other factors?
I believe it's because of lower enrollment and they also delayed their borrowing for their roof project by a year, so there's some savings there for us as well. I also, just to be clear, the enrollment ebbs and flows, and I think we had a bump of students that kind of moved through the system, and that'll change, as Matt said. It could be $100,000 more next year. Okay.
But the other, that bond is coming, even though we're just talking about FY26 with this discussion.
Yep.
That will factor into the future.
Correct. Okay, so we are working on our side on the town. We have found a combination of reductions and projections. Revenue projections that we're gonna fall somewhere between $250,000 and $400,000. Those are the cuts and changes that we're projecting. We're going to make to try to get us to this budgetary number. So now you're talking about a $650,000, $400,000 deficit. Next slide, please. And in our conversations with the school department, they believe that with a mixture of targeted reductions and revenue initiatives, they can close that remaining gap with us as a partner to get there, which would essentially bring our deficit to zero for fiscal 26. This does not solve any of your other future problems or conversations you may need to have, approaches you may need to have. However, this was not specifically discussed with TRICOM, but it is an option that we think we can attain. But before we spend all of the human capital to get to zero, the $600,000 that's sitting out there in capacity needs to be discussed, because without it, we won't get there, and we won't pursue this line of thought.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sorry. Go ahead. A lot going on.
So this is sort of what was suggested or discussed at, not entirely, but the idea of, instead of going into town meeting with an override of $1.5-ish million for the town to absorb, the suggestion was, well, what if we did, I think you called it targeted reductions, not everything, not all the reductions. What if you took a little of this and changed that? What if you came up with a compromise? So that's why I'd say this is sort of something that fits into what I think we talked about. I'd still like to meet with you and go through it line by line like we did before.
Yes, absolutely.
And that'd be easier.
Yeah, well,
but I think you're onto something, brother.
Thank you. Again, the reason I wanted to, these are generic numbers, and the
Mhm.
reason they're generic is we haven't
Mhm.
done all the work. We believe we can do this. However, all the authority over setting of fees rests with you folks. And so without that buy-in, the model doesn't work, as I said. So I agree. Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take what you folks said at TRICOM and build some momentum on that. However, again, we can do all the rest of it. We can do the targeted reductions. We can play with revenue. We can try to change how we think trends are going to happen. We can look at different alternatives. Really think outside of the box, which, we've been doing every year, but, we're putting things out there that I don't think, wouldn't have normally been the go-to to get us to zero. But again, if the board's not interested, and that's not a loaded question, if the board doesn't want to go down that road, then we just need to know now, because we're gonna pivot. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. TA. I just want to make sure I'm on the same page here. So this reduction essentially gets us there with no stabilization funds being used, but on the backs of shifting the entire trash burden over to residents.
Well, I just want to be clear. They're already paying it.
Correct.
And the reason I say that, no,
we are, but now we're going to make them pay for all of it in addition to.
Yep.
Yeah, and the
100%.
complaint is going to be, then what are my taxes paying for?
Right.
Because it always is.
Correct. So the reason, there's a reason why trash programs are generally set up as an enterprise fund, in that they are a fee for service. So right now there are people, probably a fair amount of people, in the town of Grafton that do not get any services whatsoever from trash. It's not like roads. Everybody uses the roads. Everybody uses this. Everybody benefits from education. Right? There's all these things. But trash, like water and sewer, are set up as a fee-for-service model. That's what most communities do. Most communities set up an enterprise fund in which the program becomes self-sustaining and is not a taxpayer-funded service. Grafton did not do it that way, and I wasn't here at the time, and I'm not throwing any shade. If I was here at the time, maybe that's the exact decision that was the correct decision that I would have made at the time. But I think you'd be remiss not to look at that revenue, that's the tax revenue that's going towards your trash program, that one is being paid somewhat by people that aren't using the service at all, and two, eats in year over year to your capacity. And will continue to do so as that program gets more expensive. That 50% number gets more expensive in the budget every time.
Would we look to still establish that enterprise fund for FY27 or 28 if we shifted the bag fees, or?
So I have a secondary thought, in that, the creation of a different trash model has a lot of different inputs, and that perhaps the approach should be, moving forward, whether you do this or not, I think that you need to look at your either re-energizing your waste reduction and recycling, the committee that was looking at trash when I got here, or created a different committee if we're going to take that in a different direction, however that looks, and get some residents in a room with us staff and the folks at Harvey, or generally in the trash world, so to speak, the trash industry, and carve out what that should look like. Because pay as you throw may be the most equitable model to have. Maybe we don't want to go to a toter system or an automated system, and there's pros and cons to each of those. But I also want to be cognizant, and I thought of this as we kind of went through this budget process, of the fact that I don't receive any of these services. These folks aren't coming to my door to take my trash away. That's the case with a lot of staff. It's the case in a lot of municipalities. And so I think that the long-term solution is to to do the committee work and to explore the options and get buy-in from residents on what they want their trash program to look like for the long term. But in the short term, this is the model that we have. And as I said before, I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't discuss it.
Okay. And this closes our gap for FY26, but does it still leave us with roughly 1.2 to find in 27?
So I want to be careful because the short answer is probably not, but I don't know what that number is. We literally were working on this morning to get our rough framework to bring to you to see if we're even going to go down this road. So any change we make now, any change we make to what we have for capacity, any things that we make for tweaks in revenue, or the approach that we have to how we're funding government is going to change those subsequent year numbers. And so I would say the answer to that question generically is no, it won't be 1.2 million. I just don't want to give you a specific number because we're going to dial that in the subsequent weeks if this is the direction we're heading. And if we're not heading in that direction, that number is going to change as well. We're going to dial that in with other targeted reductions and cuts, but with use of, say, stabilization or override or whatever combination of those conversations we have. So I know I threw a lot out at you folks. And then I know Miss Foley's got her hand up. But part of, it's really if it's a non-starter, then we're not going to waste our time. We're gonna build other models to present to you, and we'll still going to present what TRICOM has asked us to present to you. We just have a lot of different moving parts.
Ms. Foley?
Thanks. I like this program. I've been trying to reduce trash in this town myself for a number of years, or the amount of trash that's heading to the landfills. Again, as Evan indicated, we as taxpayers are funding 50% of this trash program. So this would be adding the other 50%, right? I mean, I can't figure out right now, of course, depends on your usage, et cetera, but I would think that this net might be, between $70 and $100 a year to a taxpayer, give or take. Obviously, I can think more about that. I think it's a more equitable system. Looking at pay as you throw, as Evan indicated, we have a robust program for seniors already. Additionally, seniors potentially might be producing less trash, so on and so forth. So, it's certainly more equitable in terms of how much trash I'm going to produce and how much I want to, pay for this. The delta seems to be about $6 for the small bag, $7 for the large. I know that the bigger numbers, the 14 and 20, but I was anticipating that we were going to up these fees this year anyway. It's just kind of traditionally what we have done, right? As the trash gets higher as well. And I think that planning to look at a different model, perhaps over the next year with a committee, as you said, Evan, would be a good idea. But for me, and doing some research in what other towns are doing, this fee for service program via the bag seems to be quite equitable. So long story short, I'm in favor of this. I understand it's another tax, right? It's just a different way of getting revenue. But it seems to me to be an equitable one, and additionally supporting, environmental sustainability, things that we could be doing to try to reduce trash in general. Thanks.
Mr. Elmo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, like you, Ms. Foley, I also am committed to eliminating as much trash in the town as possible. So that was supposed to be funny. It's getting late. So on the thing is that what you don't want to do is cut too much from the schools to eliminate services. The other thing is that you don't want to confer a big, massive financial obligation for the residents in the form of an override. So compromising is a good thing. And in that context, the reductions that you're referring to, and I have a little bit of insight into this, they don't really, and I guess this is a question, they don't really cut services for the schools. In other words, that's an impact that could be absorbed. So as we are thinking about this, it's not like it's a blanket cut of 1.5, 1.6 million to unemployment and all that. It's nibbling around the edges responsibly, as sensibly and responsibly as Jay can possibly do. It's actually a question. Is that what you would say?
Yes.
So when you think about the reductions then, and I'm with you, Anne Marie, I like the program. It's equitable. It makes sense. And although I guess it's ultimately a tax with the bags, still sort of preserving the integrity of the obligation that residents have to pay in the form of the tax levy, because you're still sort of leaving it where it is. You're just making an adjustment over here.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about the tax rate's going to be the tax rate, and this is going to be above what people pay. I mean, that's the nature of the beast, which is, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I'm sorry, my wife says 6 of one, 6 of the other, and it doesn't make any sense. But that's beside the point. I won't get off on that tangent.
It's getting late. We're both bombing tonight.
So, but it isn't. I don't know. I think you need to head in that direction probably anyways over time. It's a matter of whether we do it now and potentially shift that conversation and change the conversation about override and everything else. You move that off for at least a year, and refine some of that, what the ask is going to be as you look at how this impacts everything else.
Question, Evan. So on the town side, this project you're working on. So this 600,000 in potential trash fees, right? That we're gonna generate.
Yep.
Right. We'll alleviate and free up that cash. 200,000 from Blackstone, right, for this year. And then you said the town, you were looking at your budget at what, 200,000 to 400,000, something like that, an additional.
Yes, but it's a combination of revenues, changing how we're projecting a couple of things. We're getting a little tighter than we normally like to see it, but not so tight that we would be uncomfortable. So it's really dialing in our budget and looking at areas where we're pretty close to level funded for this fiscal year. So we're looking at areas in which we may be able to either shift the burden over into capital. We're doing that with the school department as well. I mean, they're not the end all be all great solutions, but we think we can close that gap by just being creative.
So, all right. So,
and I will,
if you, so give me a number on what you're going to reduce your, I know the town budget's pretty lean, right? It was like 2.5% or something like that. So so 300,000, 400,000, 200,000, like.
No, I think we're in the neighborhood of about 200 of a reduction, but then also again, we think we have leeway in with the way that we're gonna look at revenue for the upcoming fiscal year.
All right. So that's around $1 million, right?
Yep.
So the school would be responsible for the other $500,000, right?
Yep. Right. And in our yes.
All right. So this is my observation, and this probably isn't going to be very popular, but this is kind of where I'm at with this. I don't see Jay's budget, to my knowledge, and I don't talk to him every day. I work with everybody. I haven't seen that number change at all. Is 48 million up from 45 to 48? That hasn't changed one bit, and I don't see how that can happen, because even during the budget process, there's numbers that I would think would fluctuate with staff leaving or whatever. I mean, there's, and so I don't know if, and I had met with him as well, and I had said it here, and I said the same thing to him. There was a lot of line items in that budget that kind of threw up a red flag to me. And when I went through it, line item by line item, I saw some areas where you know, supplies in one place went from actuals of 2,000 to like 15 or 20 or 25,000. It's like, all right, why is that number going up so much, you know? So there was some inconsistencies, and I asked him to look at that, and you know, I haven't heard from him on that. And there was some other things that we kind of talked about, but I haven't seen any movement on that side. When we originally did bag fees, the taxpayer revenue used to pay for all trash. Used to pay for the pickup, you know, the trucking part and the disposal part. And when we initiated bag fees, it was a big deal. You know, it was back then it was to fund, you know, the school. That's kind of what was going on, and it was a way to bridge that gap and get through another year when we did a lot of that back then. But you know, so this is, as Mrs. Foley said, it's basically a tax, and it's a tax that the taxpayers don't have a voice in. It's not like we're going to town meeting and say, will you vote to an override, or will you vote to increase, you know, get rid of get rid of the towns subsidizing the trash, you know, pickup and disposal. We're just kind of shoving it down their throat to the tune of almost doubling, you know, the fees for the bags, which is a big pill to swallow. So, you know, being in business my whole life, you know, running companies, creating budgets, being responsible for P&L, you know, it's that kind of experience and knowledge that I pull from when I'm looking at stuff for the town as well. And I just see a repetition in behavior on the school side. And to me, and it's been going on for years and years and years, and if we keep doing it, if the school department keeps dumping problems on this desk, and we keep, you know, trying to pull blood out of the townside stone and trying to get creative, and I appreciate all the efforts, as Mark said, and you have done, you know, there's a lot of people working on this, but this is the wrong way to say it, but we're continuing to cover and subsidize that bad behavior. And bad behavior is probably the wrong phrase to say it like that, but we're spending money that we don't have, and we don't have a voice in it on this board. When the school department signed that ratified the contract, that put this right here by the stroke of that pen. That's what happened, because you can't sign a deal like that. When they signed that deal, they knew we didn't have the money. So as much as I want to see the school funded, and I do, I want to see, you know, I wish we had a more, you know, commercial tax base, and if we had extra money, give it to the schools. I'm fine with that, if we had the money. So, but that's not where we are. So, you know, I just don't think we can keep repeating this process. You know, so where I'm at, and I'm open-minded to it, and I'll listen to discussions, and it's obviously I'm one voice on a board of 5. Whatever the board decides is, you know, it will be. But I think the school department should, you know, Jay presented the reduction budget the other night, and I think they should go with that, and they should close the gap on their own, because they created it. So I don't want to see the taxpayers pay more money. They've dug in their pocket twice deeper. They dig deep every year. They've dug deeper over the last 10 years. And what has the school department done to avoid another override? Nothing. There's been no planning. So why would we go and swing at that same pitch in the dirt again? That's, again, I appreciate everybody's effort. That's where I'm at with it. I think the school department has to be responsible for their own actions, and they got to close the number on their own, and they got to get through the year. And welcome comments. That's just where I'm at with it right now, guys.
Ms. Foley, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to make sure, because someone said something, and I say tax, I'm just saying this is a way to increase revenue, right? So just to clarify, I'm not calling the bag tax per se. But, in listening to Jay present the reduction budget, it was concerning, right? They're big numbers. There's a lot of cuts. Obviously, people were there expressing their concerns, parents of kids in the schools right now. And I think that, again, just speaking, Evan seems to be looking for directive from us relative to this trash proposal. So I think we should be clear tonight in that respect and let him know, again, I'm for it, but let him know if we want him to go down this route. So for me, this isn't just specific to this year's budget. We need to look at a different, model for our trash, period. This has been, we're supposed to be talking about it for a number of years with the Waste Reduction Committee, et cetera. So it's like, now it's the time, right? We have to do something. So here is a proposal that then folks we can change, right? Next year we can say, oh, by the way, we want to go this enterprise fund way. We want to do something else. But for now, for me, this just seems like an equitable way of looking at it. And, Craig, I understand, we're looking at, when I talk to Evan or he goes through the budget with us, it does certainly appear that we're lean on Evan's side. And the fact that you're throwing out, Evan, 250 to 400 in possible reductions / revenue, finding some revenue. It's great that you continue to dig deep for everyone. But this does reflect, the school making a reduction of 650-ish, right? So I hear what you're saying, Craig, but I do appreciate that at least, and I looked at what Jay was going through. There seemed to me to be a few line items that, nothing's easy, but were easier lifts, right? And that almost might get to this 650 number without drastic reduction. So I just think that this whole proposal is relatively equitable. And while I do appreciate your, how you feel, Craig, and I appreciate that Evan and his staff continue to make reductions on our side, and it seems that that's a lot to ask because we have a much smaller piece of the pie. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just because it's been a while since I've been through it, but I've been through this and I see this repetitive behavior. I'll ask Evan. Evan, when they ratified the contract, did they discuss the numbers with you? Were you in agreement with this? Did they have you at the table when they did this?
I was not at the table.
So it's like, it's just, you should be at the table because you're the guy with the checkbook. You're the guy that's responsible for the budget, right? So how does that not happen? How do they make an agreement and then knowing that the funding is not there and then just dump it here, So I just can't, to me, it's just not a good way to do it. And we need to have these discussions before we go. And so we all know if we make this agreement, what it means. And that didn't happen. So, and we've had 2 overrides, and we all know that the state formula is not good. We're we have the worst deal probably in the state, right? And we don't have the commercial tax base, so it falls on the residents. And we've asked them to spend more, not just the override figures that Evan showed. That doesn't count the normal increase in taxes, right?
Correct.
So that's on top of an annual increase in taxes. So you're asking people to dig deep for a third time. So when does it end? Like, why aren't we solving that before it happens again? And why aren't they going line item by line item, and figuring out what they can do? So, I just can't, bad policy, and I just don't want to keep repeating it and asking people for more money without fixing the problem. And we're not fixing it. We're just continuing to hand out money, ask people for money. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yeah, so I guess a few thoughts on this option. Just thinking about it. So right now we have 600K that is being covered by the broad tax base. So you've got people that are in apartments and condos and that sort of stuff that aren't using any town trash services, that are paying, effectively subsidizing other people's trash. So I do see this, this change in the model for trash services to more pay as you throw, to be a little bit more equitable for this particular service. I think it's likely to hit families harder because they're obviously going to be using more trash, producing more trash. So that's something that I think this board needs to be cognizant of. But it's not just families. So like one of the things that the schools were considering were potentially fees, like for athletics. And I think that's something that becomes so targeted to those families. They're talking about a couple $100 for a sport. That really is that's a heavy burden on a very small set. I consider these fees to be less if you look at it on an annual basis and more broadly based. So it's going to actually make a difference in the way that, athletic fees they wouldn't really turn the dial in a meaningful way in the way that this would. So I think the amount of revenue that's potentially on the table is significant enough for it to make a difference. I would be interested, before I'm in full support of this, I'm in support in principle, but I really would need to understand the specific cuts that we were talking about. I did not like almost anything that was in the reduction budget description from the schools. I didn't like getting rid of French. I didn't like getting rid of counseling services. There were classroom size increases. So I'm not in favor of any of that. But, something that you mentioned was, could we do something like on the school side and on the town side, move some maintenance things over from the operational budget over into capital, for example? So that's something that we have to do comfortably. But, it's a way to, and with the number of facilities that the schools have, that could be a chunk of change that we could look at that wouldn't, we would still be able to keep up on maintenance, but you'd be shifting that over into, more free cash usage or the municipal stabilization, capital stabilization budget. So those kinds of things I would support, but before sort of a full-throated support of this whole model, I really would need to understand what those reductions would look like on both the school side and the town side. But, as I said, in principle, I think this is one that you guys should run with. I wanted to talk a little bit about just the schools in general. I heard terms like the schools dumping their problems on the town side. We've had bad behaviors. The schools created this gap. The schools haven't done anything. I feel like the public deserves a balanced view of where our school system is with regards to their financial practices. I haven't seen their budget create this gap. I've seen the state and its lack of funding to the town, and that funding formula has primarily created that gap. That's where we're at, as well as requirements for educational supports that the schools are legally required to fulfill. So those aren't things that are optional. in our school system. So I don't, this wasn't sort of financial mispractice on the school's side of things. There was the contract negotiation was brought up. All of the contracts that were negotiated in the past couple of years, everybody knew that we were running out of levy capacity. So everybody knew, including on the town side, that we were bargaining with money that we didn't necessarily have. Like, that's the nature of getting to the end of an override. You're in that position where you're having a discussion with the bargaining unit, and everybody knows that if there isn't additional revenue on the table at some point, that there's going to have to be some accommodation for that. And it's either going to be layoffs, it's going to be additional revenue somewhere, like these bag fees, new growth, override. There's different options for that. But I don't think that the schools were unique in that regard in terms of their negotiation strategies. And at the end of the day, Dr. Cummings and the school committee have to provide an educational service that's high quality. The town expects that. And so that's what they're doing. I don't see their budget's lean every year, just like the town's is. And I just wholly reject the characterization that somehow the schools have been mismanaging the money year after year. It's just not a reality at all. So I just completely reject that. I reject the idea that there's been any kind of bad behavior at all. The schools have very different drivers in terms of costs than the town does, and they have very different funding sources as well. A much heavier part of the school budget comes from the state, so they just have different things to deal with than the town side does. So I'm in support of pursuing this option. I think it's a good option. I really appreciate that you guys are putting this on the table, and perhaps giving us another year before we need to do something else. So I think for this board member, I'm in support of this in principle. I would be very interested in if you guys, the rest of the board is amenable to this option. What kinds of reductions we'd be looking at on both the town side and the school side. So that's what I have on that.
So Andy, just one thing. Just keep in mind if we entertain this and we lose the, if we start asking residents to pay 100% of trash to the tune of 600,000 that's going to be made available, they're going to pay that, right, and fees, and then so that's going to help get us through this year, and then next year we're going to be back here asking for an override. And Matt, you can reject anything you want, but when they sign, when they ratify a contract and give a 6.7% raises to the tune of 1.6 million, and that's about what we generate in new money every year. That's not counting operational money and all that stuff. It's just when they're asking for $3 million a year in additional funds, and we know the funds don't exist, that's a problem. So, and we just don't have the money, and we can't keep asking people for more. It's not a solution. So,
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Elmo.
Just a thought in that the possibility of pursuing this, they're just looking into it. It's not a guarantee that we would accept it or do it. It's just that you would pursue this as a possibility and look at the numbers in detail. I think what I hear is we're trying to search for the least worst option. It's not perfect. And I think I agree with you. I think I do, in the sense that it's a lot. And I also think that if I look at the budget, the reductions we're talking about, Matt, it's about maybe 1%-ish of the total school budget. So when you talk about things that I think you said wholly against or against these reductions or cuts, some of them, 1% isn't that huge. It's just not, numerically speaking. And we're just trying to thread the needle of the least worst option. It's not there's really no great answer to this, because in the end, we are probably coming back to this next year. It's not gonna, there's gonna be new challenges, new obstacles. And this is, it's just an attempt to try to compromise instead of just have it one thing or another thing. And by the way, you're taking your chances with putting a big override on the ballot of people saying no. And then what? If it's no, then it's 1.5, well, actually 1.6 off the top. Cuts unemployment all the way. That's a bit of the roll of the dice, if you ask me. So I wonder if that sentiment is that Craig is sharing. I mean, I've kind of sensed that a little bit, that, we certainly are getting communications from people in support of fully funding the schools. We are not getting those same communications from people that are saying, no, I'm not doing it. And so again, just trying to come back to the least worst option. I don't think it's great, but it's one way to think about it. Thank you for the time.
I appreciate your input. I'm going to take a moment here. I haven't spoken yet. I lean with Mr. Offen in his assessment of school spending. I think we do have a major issue with state reimbursement. And everything that you listed. I think a lot of our budget drivers in general are primarily inflationary as well, and things that we just couldn't have built in or prepared for. It's a lousy situation that we find ourselves in, but I don't believe it's due to school overspending. I judging by the reactions from everybody on the board, I think we're going to ask you to explore this option. I personally am more leaning towards no. I just feel like in everything that I appreciate where you're coming from, and I understand. To me, I agree with how equitable it is. It just feels like there are too many red flags. With moving things out of ops and into capital, just a handful of moves that are less than ideal. The FY27 still looming, and the potential for us to do this and still need an override. Still have to go back to residents next year, in a year, and say we need an override. And this option removes the public vote at this point. It's us solving the problem, which people are going to have opinions with, but putting the override out there gives the residents the choice as to what they want to do, as opposed to us making that choice for them. And I just feel like this is an important instance where that needs to be considered. Those things said, touching on what Mr. Alamo just spoke about, if we went and to town meeting and an override doesn't pass, are we in a place where if nothing passes, we then just raise bag fees to help close that gap? Or maybe that's something that the board needs to discuss and consider amongst ourselves. But is it we give them the option, and then if it doesn't pass and we need to fill that gap, we make the decision for them at that point? It doesn't seem any more equitable than not letting them vote on it to start with. I don't know. I have trouble with it.
Mm-hmm. Are we, though, putting together a recommendation and not making that decision? The decision would be to put together the recommendation and then put it? Could we put that to vote? It doesn't work like that?
No, not when it comes to the setting of fees. Is really the select board's authority.
Okay.
So, you want to be, in my opinion, you want to be finite in that delineation.
Okay.
Because every time you set a fee, you don't want to have to go back to town meeting. There's a reason it resides with the select board, and that's being nimble and able to, react to things that happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Foley?
it's only 2 buttons to click, but anyway, I feel that in a year we're going to be talking about trash again for sure. So whether it's an enterprise fund or whatever it is. So yeah, we're talking about it now, or we will be talking about it, in my opinion, next year. So I don't think that if we say no to this now and we go full override, I don't think that's going to negate our fees going up for trash. And then additionally, what this allows us is, the potential for hopeful new growth, new revenue over the next year. The per pupil amount is supposed to be relooked at, I believe, in that next fiscal year. We have some new growth that we know will be hopefully coming at some point. And I agree with Mark. I have read every correspondence that has come in support of the schools and their funding, and I appreciate that, and I've read them all, but I do wonder, if we go to town meeting and it's voted down, is that a catastrophic occurrence for the school? So this plan enables us to ensure that that doesn't happen. But that's all. Thanks.
Mr. Jackson, you do have one hand on Zoom, unless you want to wait for public comment.
I'm inclined to wait until public comment at this point. I think that's just going to be our best approach. We'll give everybody their 2 to 3 minutes and acquire feedback there.
Yep.
Any other feedback or direction that we wish to offer? I guess we do need to give you a firm yay or nay to move forward with exploring the trash option. So, yes.
We not call it the trash option.
How's everybody? How's straw polling? How's everybody feeling about that? Is that what we want? Want Evan to explore?
Fully is a yes.
Alamo would like to see more.
Yeah, I'm a no.
No, you don't wish to see him explore this option any further?
Correct.
Okay.
No, I don't want to do that.
I'd like to see exploration because I would like to understand specifically what the cuts would be on the school and the amounts and the impacts on services. So
okay.
I'm for exploring it.
Okay. Just thinking of the future, what sort of timetable do you think you'll need to pull this information together?
And they'll be done with this by Friday.
Okay. I'm making an additional. I'll ask additional question of the board. And this is no knock on the TRICOM or their viability or the job that any of them have done to this point. Would we feel like it would make sense to make, in the TRICOM meeting, the discussion was pointing towards a budget discussion at the 3/18 select board meeting, our next meeting. Would it make sense then to open that up and make that a joint meeting with at least school committee, if not finance committee as well, in an effort to be efficient with our questions and feedback rather than each committee dealing with it individually and in that fashion? What do we think about that? Ms. Foley?
Yeah, so Evan wouldn't have the opportunity. So Evan would come back to us with the numbers then in front of all 3 boards type thing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Evan and Jay, I would think we get everybody in the room and try and get as drilled into this as we possibly can.
Does TRICOM have a meeting scheduled? I didn't get to stay till the end of their previous meeting.
We're working on it back and forth throughout the day. I don't think there's a solid date at last I saw via email.
Yeah, I suspect we'll meet before the 18th, but we don't have a date yet.
I suppose I'm inclined to say yes, and pending a lot of things that might occur between now and then, including the TRICOM meeting.
To me, it just, like I said, it seems like there's a lot of information that comes up at each of these meetings. We touched on a few new options tonight. Jay had a variety of options at the school committee meeting. It's tough to gauge what we're going to be reacting to in advance because things change so quickly, and that limits our ability to offer guidance to our TRICOM representatives, and when they're functioning in real time. If you guys disagree with me, I'm totally open to that. Again, we are still discussing options, and the timeline continues to get shorter. Just that was my thinking, my rationale.
Well, if you're gonna have a meeting with select board, finance committee, school committee, Evan and Jay, you probably don't need another TRICOM meeting, because that's like TRICOM meeting on steroids.
Well, that's what I was
why
just
don't we
thinking of.
if we're
I'm
gonna
still
do
on the
that, why
meeting.
don't we just like nix the TRICOM meeting, which you haven't been able to fit, that's partly on me, but we don't have a
No,
next
so-
meeting, so let's just do it. If we're gonna do this, I don't think we need to do the TRICOM meeting. 'Cause you
Well,
have
let's.
everybody else from all
I think
committees.
let's wait. Let's let the TRICOM set up their meeting. Let's let Evan work on this, and then I don't think we have to decide this evening how we want to hold that. But I mean, to your point, Mark, it kind of negates the purpose of the TRICOM. You guys have only had one meeting, really. I guess two, but
I guess I would ask Evan, do you think, are we ready to have this
Yeah.
meeting, or do you think
Yeah.
the school department and the finance committee, I mean,
It's 2 weeks.
And a lot of people to wrangle.
yeah, that's right. I mean, the school committee, school department should definitely be here. I mean, finance can certainly listen in. It would be good for them, but
Yeah, I mean, if we're doing it in 2 weeks, we'll be ready. That's
does school committee have a meeting that night?
We're back to alternating their second and fourth, where first and
all
third.
right. I thought they were the same night.
Yeah, so to pencil in, I think that makes sense.
We could potentially offset it too. Maybe the public meeting starts at 7:30, so it gives us a chance to bang out our current agenda business before we get into the budget talk, or again, just spitballing. But yeah, I think we have options.
Yeah, so if we're gonna do that, I would look to clear the decks.
Okay.
For that.
We can do that too.
As much as possible for that meeting. So anything non-essential, if we're gonna meet with school committee and discuss budget direction going forward, I would think that we would wanna just leave that discussion pretty much on its own as much as we can.
Actually, that's just makes me think we should do this at like a workshop. We shouldn't do it at a regular scheduled meeting if we can. But then that would be a night of school committee, though, right?
Unless
I'm just thinking that we should have a night of the. We shouldn't have anything else on the agenda.
I agree with that.
and just so you know, I mean, March 18th, we do have agenda items.
Yep.
Including, fire chief eval, talking about that, Evans eval. There are some things on there that are a little bit time, that, need to be timely.
So the 25th, is that March 25th, is that an open night for both committees?
Yeah, I think it depends on the school.
We could find out.
Schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, inquire.
We can have Amherst send out a survey and try to wrangle that in.
But I think it does make sense for it to be its own meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think, it sounds like what we're saying is,
Yeah.
skip TRICOM, and just the next meeting will be
All of us.
select board, school committee, and we'll have that full discussion with, hopefully with everything in hand. I think that makes sense.
Okay, so we'll have Amber try and test
We gotta
availability
get this
and
buzzing,
determine
and I'm gonna need a helmet.
what the best date's going to be
Take
for
a
this.
bat to that thing in about 5 minutes.
They're talking about the camera.
No, I know.
Yeah,
we're
not to you, Evan.
We're not making it up, Evan. It's a real thing.
I was like, it's been 11 years. I've never.
In fact, this thing would work. This is pretty sturdy. I'm gonna.
All right. So we will have Amber reach out and try to get concurrence on the date.
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Got real distracted with
Marking his gate and trying to get up to the thing.
My gate. There you go. Little levity.
All right. Are we okay to move on from this discussion then?
Yes.
Excellent. Any correspondence that anybody wanted to discuss?
Just to say that, like Anne Marie and probably like all of us, I have read every communication that's come into the select board, and I appreciate the input and I respect it. So thank you very much for all of those folks that have sent information into us and made their voices heard.
Yeah, just to sort of pile on that a little bit. Yeah, there's clear support for funding the schools. I think we've received 10 letters in support of the, making sure that we're funding the schools. So I appreciate all of that input from residents, and we'll certainly, keep that in mind as we make our decisions.
I'm going to put in one more plug, similar to at school committee the other night, that definitely appreciate everybody reaching out to both the select board and the school committee, but making sure that you're reaching out to our state rep and our state senator as well, and pushing for adjustments to our per pupil spending and making them aware, or better aware, I should say, I guess, of the situation here in Grafton. We have no resignation tonight, so we can move into public comment. Come on up. We ask that you limit it to 2 to 3 minutes.
All right, Colleen Roy, and I just wanted to circle back to the budget discussion and through the board to the town administrator. When you look into this trashy program that you're coming up with, when you talk about an override, you do the average household for the 1 year was going to be like 237, but it's hard to do that for trash. So if you made the average trash user say 1 bag a week, that's over $300. So they're going to spend more with this program and still have cuts than the 1 year override. Is that correct? If we said the average trash user buys 1 roll a week.
1 roll a week?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, if they were buying 1 roll a week.
So when you're coming up with those numbers for them to determine, because I know it's equitable, but it's also kind of stinky if you're going to get cuts and be paying more, right? Not that trash is stinky, but just to think about it that way too. And if we did the 1 year override, we get by without the cuts and we still have time to, incrementally increase the trash fees rather than one huge whack at once and look into other things over the next year, which we're going to be looking into anyway. So this just wanted to throw that out there. I didn't hear that kind of discussed as an option. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Allison Reset. Do I have to say anything? My address?
Please.
Okay, 10 Lakeview Drive. That's a lot to take in, unpack, and process for someone who's not very entrenched in town government. So, so I guess I'm just going to kind of stick with what I had prior to that discussion. And I just want to say thank you for acknowledging the letters that you have received, and thank you for meeting with Dr. Cummings and continuing to hear feedback from people who are very entrenched in the school system right now. So so I just wanted to say that, and just that, again, just to share and echo that my children, they were just starting in the Grafton school system when the override was passed in 2020. And I have no doubt that their education was impacted in a positive way because of that funding. And so I just want you to think about that. So from preschool to 4th grade, now they got through with that override funding. And, just to continue to, it's not a solution that we all love, but it is a solution and it is a possibility. And I think, just keep debating and having those discussions, because I think people in Grafton do have a right to kind of decide and put it to the voters. So I'd like to continue to see it be an option. And then also, as someone in the school system now, my daughter is in 6th grade. From my understanding is that essentially the schools have been existing on a level services budget for the last 10 years. So I'd like to still kind of like dispel the notion that they're not looking at things strategically, and that just to emphasize that like they are working on a level services budget and they've been doing it for 10 years. So certain things have come, like I'm not familiar with all the contract stuff, but I do know that it does seem like they've just been maintaining level services. And as a parent, you feel that in the school system. You feel that already. Like, I think you like, I think that you see children not getting the reading support services that they might need because the funding's not there. Or like one of the cuts proposed is like a math support position. You see kids struggling with math right now. So, I just like, I want you to understand that people feel that the budget is lean, and you can see that in your kids' education. And so what I understand that is being proposed is that level services, like we're not asking for more, we're just asking for the minimum. And right now, as a parent, I'm not even feeling like the minimum is enough. So, again, just like I can recognize and see that there's so much going on and there's so many different layers. And, just keep communicating with the community too, because it is really, really hard to stay up to speed and to like react and to like process and to be able to be like, okay, what do we do now? So I would just like ask the communication coming from your like individual like select board accounts to like let people know where things stand, so that they can kind of like process on their own time and try to stay in the loop, so that they can be informed and that they can come to these meetings like more informed and ready to help share their opinions. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, you have one hand on Zoom.
Letterman? Mr. Kusher, welcome.
Hello, Dan Kusher, 79 Keith Hill Road. I just want to, respond to what I thought was a very strange perspective on things from Mr. Dauphiné. This, like, very blaming, internal fighting kind of perspective about the town versus the schools, and the schools caused the problem. To me, the schools, like was previously stated, the schools have been at a level services for a long time now. That's what they're doing. That's what the community wants. We want level services for our schools. In fact, I think there are a lot of people out in our town who would like to increase the level of services, but it seems like the compromise has been level services. And to suggest that the schools are doing something wrong or misbehaving by sticking to this level services approach is I can't wrap my head around that. I feel like the idea that we can't keep spending, it's sort of putting Prop 2.5 as like this kind of holy law that we're sinning when we when we violate Prop 2.5 with an override. But it's the voters. The voters are deciding whether or not to increase our own taxes. It's only the select board who gets to decide whether we even get the chance to make that vote. But provided that the select board puts something on the ballot, it's the voters. We are deciding whether to increase our own taxes. It's not forcing things on the voters. We're deciding. So I would strongly encourage you to put an override on the ballot that would fund level services for the schools, and let us decide. And in fact, Mr. Daphne, when you were running, we spoke about this, and I asked you if you would support an override, putting an override on the ballot for the voters, and you told me if they go through all the numbers, if Jay and Evan work through everything, and they decide that they can't make it work without an override, that you would support at least putting it on the ballot for the voters to decide. You told me that when you were running for office. So to hear you talking about it like this now is very disappointing.
Well, let me answer you, Dan. I haven't said that I wasn't willing to put it on the ballot. Okay, so I haven't broken my word to you based on our discussion. But look at what's happened over the last 10 years, right? We're spending money that we don't have consciously, right? We're asking for money that we don't have. We're committing money that we don't have. And then we're coming back to the taxpayer and asking them for more. I understand Prop 2.5. I know what it is. All right. But we're continuing to do that without any planning prior to those decisions being made. And so it's I think it's just a bad way to govern. It's a bad way to, it's just fiscally irresponsible to do it in that manner. If the town decides to pass another override to fund the schools, then that's a town decision, and that's fine. All right. My issue is the process and how we're getting to that place. We're not giving the taxpayers an option. And when I sit up here, the way I look at my responsibility is to represent all taxpayers. I had kids that were in the school, and I think my last daughter lived through maybe 2 years of override money. So they were there when there was no override money. So, I just feel like the way it's happening and the cycle is repeating itself. Now we're talking, we're repeating it for the third time on decisions that this board didn't have a say in, and now we're here trying to work the problem. And it just doesn't seem like the right way to do it. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Maybe I chose my words poorly before, and some of the ways that I said it. But what I meant is that we're putting the taxpayers and the school department in a difficult position, right? By how we're making decisions. So I would rather have us decide what we're going to do before we start spending money that we don't have. And I think that's just fiscally responsible. Don't you?
I feel like it would be great if we could align those things. The teacher contract, for example, with the revenue to cover it. It doesn't seem to line up that way with how Prop 2.5 and how our state laws and around municipal funding work out. I think the bigger picture here is we have a school system in Grafton that is very good. and extremely cost effective. And unfortunately, the cost for this level services grows faster than Proposition 2.5, allows us to raise the revenue to cover. And so for as long as we want to continue having our schools at this level, we're going to need to do overrides every few years to cover the increase in expenses, or until the state government adjusts how all this works. And so I think it just comes down to what the community values. Do we want to continue raising the taxes at this, periodic way to fund level services for the schools, or do we want to dramatically reduce the quality of our schools to fit within Prop 2.5? And it would be an extreme change to the level of the schools, and frankly, it would completely change the entire town if that were to happen. The entire, like the character of Grafton would be completely unrecognizable
Mr. Cushion?
if that were to happen. Yes.
I
way over 3 minutes.
We
Sorry.
have, you had some time. I gave you a few extra
Yes.
minutes because so you could respond to Mrs. Dauphiné. But if you could just wrap it up, that would be appreciated.
I feel like that last bit was a great stopping point. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for your feedback. Appreciate it. Any other hands on Zoom?
You have no other hands on Zoom.
We have no meeting minutes to approve tonight, so I can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Miss Foley.
Foley, aye.
Dauphiné, aye.
Alamo, aye.
Jefferson, aye. Declare us adjourned. Thank you all.